Oye, muéstrame tu tierra, mami. Vamos juntos para allá. Bueno, mira. Oye, llévame al campo, la tierra donde naciste. Carretero tira su carreta, que recuerda donde viviste. Contemplarte en la sierra, contemplarte en los valles, y lo hacemos juntos para capturar los detalles. Tierra, tierra, muéstrame tu tierra, mamá. Tierra, tierra, muéstrame tu tierra, mamita. Tierra, 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 tierra. Bueno, mira de nuevo, estamos viajando lejos, pero vale la pena. Recogemos recuerdos y siempre buscamos terrena. Esto es tuyo y siempre lo será. Siempre será tu tierra y siempre lo recordarás. Óyelo, tierra, tierra, siempre lo recordarás. Tierra, tierra, es tu tierra, mami. Tierra, 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 tierra. Bueno, mira, juntos vamos para allá. Tu tierra. Escucha. Aquí es tu tierra y siempre la será. Siempre la será, mamá. Aquí es tu tierra y siempre la recordará. Óyelo bien, mamita. Y siempre la será. Siempre la será, oye. Aquí es tu tierra y siempre la recordará. Siempre la recordará.
You gotta bake those gay cakes.
Vamos vaya, mamita linda. Y siempre la recordará. Vamos vaya, mamá. Tierra y siempre la será. Siempre la será, oye. Tierra y siempre la recordará. Camina, como dicen, tierra y siempre la será. Siempre la será, mamá. Siempre la recordará. La tierra, tierra, tierra. Tierra, tierra. Vamos para allá, para tu tierra, mamita.
Where we did agree
Tierra, siempre será tu
is
tierra.
that he would go to these college campuses and proclaim that
Camina
Jesus
para allá,
Christ.
camina.
Ultimately, that is why he was elected. The government won't know that. They hated him. He flex of his defense of Christian morality. Charlie Kirk cannot call himself a Christian. Sorry, you forfeited that. I do not want to hear, and you cannot allow Charlie Kirk to go to one more public event, one more question and answer, one more ask me anything.
Suena la trompeta ahí. Ay, qué rico.
Stephen Miller Knuckles will be working very hard to do exactly that in the months to come. We're not always going to get it right. We will sometimes move more slowly than you would like. We will sometimes move more slowly than I want us to. But I promise you that we will explore every option to bring real unity to our country and stop those who would kill their fellow Americans because they don't like what they say. But you have a role too. Civil society, Charlie understood this well, is not just something that flows from the government. It flows from each and every one of us. It flows from all of us. So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination. Get involved. Get involved. Get involved.
Time. One guy, one time. One guy, one time.
I'm not fucking leaving. Scare the crap out of them. Scare the crap out.
It's Liberation Day in the state of California. As Senator Schiff said, Donald Trump, you have poked the bear. And
Yo, what up? We streaming? What up, folks? How we doing? Almost ready, folks. Got some shit to show you. We're gonna make some gay cakes tonight, and we're gonna force you to bake all our gay cakes. Authoritarian government. Pam Bundy. Ah! Who's ready, folks? Sorry. Hey, how we doing, folks? Hope everyone's doing well. This is a super secret late night stream. Hope everything's okay. And hope everyone is having a fabulous Monday night into Tuesday morning. Everything cool? Loving the music tonight. Bro, the passport thing is insane. Is this about Israel? It's about Israel? Did you get TikTok access yet? And I haven't tried to do the thing yet. But I do want to recommend you guys follow me on TikTok. I just made it. And we're already getting like decent views. Like I only have, how many followers? I have 77 followers. And one of my TikToks already has like 9K views. Oh, I have 96 followers. Holy shit, that just jumped. Oh, like 10K views on one of my videos. I didn't know there was this much appetite for political shit on TikTok. Was I just asleep this whole time? Late night streaming through the Fourth Reich. And my Insta is Pisco Liddy. So it's Pisco Liddy on Insta and Pisco Liddy on TikTok. I'm trying to promote those two at the moment. So we're going to just like cross post shit and maybe eventually get into like the streaming the crazies on TikTok. We need to spread the word. Spread the good word. The good word. I'm here to spread the good word to you. And if you hear something that you think is the good word, can I get an amen? And what I'm going to start with is hate speech is free speech. Hate speech is free speech. We don't live in one of these European countries. I don't even know if that's a word. We don't live in one of the Commonwealth countries that does short thrift. Thank you so much for the membership, Andy. To free speech. And hate speech is free speech. I don't want no government tell me what is hateful and what is not hateful. I don't want them to determine for me what constitutes hate. If we can't say that, about racial hatred, and I don't think we should, how are you going to tell me insulting a widow is hate speech? Insulting a widow might as well be a national pastime in America. Okay? People going after Jackie O, people going after all sorts of widows in the history of this country. Do I condone it? Not necessarily. Do I condone people celebrating the political assassination of others? Of course not. But there is no hate speech in this country related to lack of sanctity with death, even horrible death. If you're allowed to picket in support of the fascist state of Russia, in support of 9/11, which you are, in support of the KKK, in principle in support of violent overthrow of the United States government, and you are allowed to do that in this country, in a free country, not in one of those tyrannical countries that we don't live in, like China. In China, you can't do this. In Russia, you can't do this. But in America, you can speak your mind, or I thought you could. In America, you can go to a military service member's funeral and say, God is happy that your son died. That's what it is to be an American, is the right to go to a military service member's funeral. You don't necessarily get access to the actual funeral site, outside of the location. Reasonable rules and limitations. Time, place, and manner restrictions, all that. Not allowed to do stalking, that kind of shit. Importuning. Right up to someone's face, that kind of stuff. But you are allowed to demonstrate and state publicly horrific ideas. And for the longest time, the right-wingers in the 20th century, 21st century signaled like they gave a fuck about this. Now, I want to be careful between the concept of signaling that you care about something and actually caring about it. Now, I always cared about the First Amendment, always have. For example, I'm the one who's saying we should defend Hassan's global entry. So I've always been a First Amendment stan. Day one. Always have been. But some of these people, they put on that mask because they know it sells well. It speaks to a shared value in this country that is as long as the Republic itself. It's not always been adhered to faithfully. Not always. But it is a shared notion that we've strived to obtain. And so they use the sympathy, they use the nostalgia, they use the sentiment underlying the First Amendment to go after, for example, things that aren't at all implicated by the First Amendment. For example, having different terms of service or speech codes on privately owned, privately managed internet platforms. Never been understood to be a First Amendment issue. Not government interference of any kind, nothing like that. In general, a cultural value that I think should be like more accessible is kind of speech and not deplatforming. That's, I think it's a good idea, but it's not strictly speaking a First Amendment issue. Same thing on college campuses. They said things like, this is a First Amendment issue when a college decides, a private college, let's say, that there's this like hate speech or, I don't know, policy with respect to safe spaces. But now the Trump administration, they have left all of the facade of supporting freedom in the First Amendment, and they've thrown it completely. They're not even pretending anymore. They're not even pretending anymore. It started right away as soon as the administration began with blatantly violative actions by the state, particularly in the realm of immigration, deporting people because of their views on Israel, going after law firms because of their First Amendment associations, their support of certain clients, going after newspapers and journalists, threatening their funding, going to the schools themselves, Harvard and others, particularly to, again, use the trappings of the state, the leverage of the state, to punish these schools for speaking out against the administration's line and dogma. That's what they were doing from the first months of the administration. FIRE, which is the First Amendment organization that's respected, it's a bipartisan organization of lawyers. You know, you don't have to agree with every single one of their cases, but there's some respect of the FIRE organization in terms of standing up to the First Amendment in no uncertain terms. And they've stood up for Republicans, they stood up for MAGA people, and they stood up for left-wing causes. In no uncertain terms, the worst administration when it comes to the First Amendment in modern history. Obvious, clear. Just based on the conduct prior to the cowardly, dastardly assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was a criminal, disgusting act. That was all pre this. So whatever facade there was had been crumbling. And you'd really have to be a fool to believe it. I mean, you'd really have to be a cultish fool to believe the administration under Trump term 2 gave one rat's ass about the First Amendment. You'd have to be a complete moron, cult member. But now they are not even trying to hide it. They are not even trying to hide it. This is Pamela Bondi. You guys know who Pamela Bondi is? Who knows who Pamela Bondi is? The Attorney General of the United States. The Attorney General of the United States, Pamela Bondi, said the following.
Law enforcement. There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement?
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
This decrepit, corrupt, disgusting person who's already making excuses for Trump not following the law in every other domain, covering up the reveal of the Epstein files, making excuses for a $400 million value Qatari plane that is to be received by Trump's presidential library. This fascist scum who is defending the destruction of our republic at the hands of Trump says, well, there's free speech and then there's hate speech, right? So hate speech isn't free speech. Whatever hate speech is, says Pamela Bondi, isn't free speech. That's Pamela Bondi. Well, who decides what's hate speech? And she says, especially after what happened with Charlie Kirk. Well, what's the hate speech for Charlie Kirk? Calling Charlie Kirk a fascist? Calling Trump a fascist? So they're going to define the hate speech. And yeah, don't forget Eric Adams, the corrupt deal to drop bribery charges against Eric Adams in exchange for cooperation on issues related to immigration. That's the corrupt bribery quid pro quo that Pamela Bondi oversaw as Attorney General. Whether she had direct knowledge of it or not, she was in charge of the Department of Justice. buck stops with her. Pam Bondi says, especially after what happened to Charlie Kirk, we can't have hate speech. And hate speech, I'm going to play one more time. There's free speech, and then there's hate speech.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech.
So there's a distinction. Necessarily, she's saying, and listen next.
And there is no place,
There's no
now,
place.
especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
There's no place, especially after what happened to Charlie, implying that A, hate speech caused what happened to Charlie. The investigation's ongoing. She's no better than Kash Patel going out there and saying, rest easy, brother. We take the watch now. Go with Valhalla. She's no better. They're all just, their job is going on the news, putting on little outfits, and saying unhinged shit on social media. She's no better than Kash Patel. And so she's directly implying that speech critical of the administration is not covered by free speech. That's hate speech. If you call them a fascist for doing fascist things, that's hate speech. You caused Charlie Kirk's death. Now, I want to give you a quote. Okay, folks? This is a quote. It's a really, I think, good quote. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Who said that? One Charles Kirk. So at this point, there just isn't anything left of this pretense that the Trump administration gives a rat's ass about your liberty and especially the First Amendment. Unlike what Charlie Kirk claimed to stand for, which is there is no hate speech that is not covered by free speech. Pam Bondi, in Kirk's name, is now justifying to the media why they're going to try to crack down on your fellow citizens. They never gave a shit. They want to ban flag burning. They want to ban criticisms of Israel. They want to go after your law firms, go after your schools, go after your neighbors. And now they're coming after American citizens who speak out against the regime because they're accusing Democrats of being complicit in murder. And why are they complicit? Well, because of hate speech. Because we've decided your speech is hateful. Does it get any better than this, folks? Does it get any better than this? It is the juiciest hypocrisy. The juiciest hypocrisy I have ever been witness to. And so in the future, if you ever see people talk about cancel culture, talk about free speech, and there's some MAGA voting dumbfuck, you know what your reaction is, right? You just laugh at them. You laugh. These are not serious people. These are people with no values, no principles. They believe in the cult. That's what they believe in. They are government bootlicking shills. They just trust the government. That's what they do. And so they say, and it didn't even take anything, right? Like, it wasn't even tough for Pamela Bondi to get support for this kind of action. I'm sure all the MAGA people in the reply are saying, great. Of course. Go punish hate speech without any ounce of self-awareness or irony. Doesn't even faze them. They don't even need to be lied to. They are useful idiots. Absolute government bootlicking shills. And to be clear, ... in the chat is absolutely correct. That's nothing new. Of course it's not. They never cared about this. They never cared about rights or free, one or two principled civil libertarians. But the overwhelming vast majority of everyone talking about cancel culture never gave a fuck. Overwhelming number of people talking about government censorship never gave a fuck. Trump is suing the New York Times for defamation. Very interesting. For what? So I'm just curious. Is there any MAGA shill left who watches my stream, who wants to defend this shit? In truth, they can't. They know this is totally untenable. A totally untenable position. But step right up if you think that you can defend this. We'll watch a couple of other things real quick. First, I'll show you another, what I think is a banger tweet. I have some debates lined up later this month, by the way, which I'll announce at some point. This is a banger tweet of mine. I think it's banger. Bondi wants to enforce civil rights laws that Charlie Kirk said should never have existed in the first place to protect black people, to publish vendors who don't want to eulogize Kirk. She actually said this, and I'll show you the clip. To uphold Kirk's values like free speech. You can't make it up. That's just, it takes the cake, right? The gay cake. Because remember, you can't force a cake shop to make gay cakes, but you can force a print shop to make eulogies for Charlie Kirk. And so we'll use these civil rights laws that Charlie Kirk was very much against. And he said we should never even pass the Civil Rights Act in general. We'll use it to punish the people who don't sufficiently pay reverence to Charlie Kirk. That's what we're going to do. Because obviously we need to uphold Kirk's values like free speech. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All millennials recall their years of performative rhetoric lies. Hey, bro. I don't know if this guy's talking about me. I'm not sure which millennial. But if you're a disagreeer, please come to the Discord. We need you guys. We need some genuine MAGA apologist shills. But frankly, they're all in their little safe spaces now. And in their industrial cancel culture pods. They're being sent by the government to go cancel teachers and shit. Not just for celebrating at Kirk's death, but for quoting him. They want to cancel employees for just quoting Charlie Kirk. Oh yeah, Clearwatch talking about the right wing. Got it. You're not a disagreeer. Got it. So, yeah. Here's Pam Bondi.
Horrific. It's free speech. That's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed anywhere if you're going to say that. And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at
We're going to prosecute if you don't print out vigils for Charlie Kirk. Anymore, this is going to sound like fucking Alan Dershowitz. What, you're going to fucking sue me and prosecute me if I don't sell a pierogi to some fascist scum? What are you going to do, Pamela Bondi? Going to break another part of your oath? Let's hear that one more time.
But Sean, you know, that's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed anywhere if you're going to say that. And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately.
And remember, this is her job. The Department of Justice, which is supposed to be independent and not take their cues from the political appointees of the president. Her whole job is to be an attack dog for Donald Trump. The rot is so deep that she is out here, along with, by the way, Kash Patel. Kash Patel, who's like starting political feuds, the head of the FBI, political feuds. And no one bats an eye because these are all degenerate scum. And we know this. We know this. They're doing baseless lawsuits against journalists. They're attacking the schools. They're attacking universities. They're attacking the law firms. They're attacking what they view are the institutional liberal forces. Next, they'll go after the movies and Hollywood. They're coming after the Democrats. They're going to start making it illegal to criticize the administration. This is all part of Project 2025. It's all what we told you. Can I tell you a story about that time my grandma walked in on me? I mean, you were really laughing at that, Josiah. But it's exactly what we told you. Now they're suing the New York Times because they just don't give a fuck about freedom. All they care about is this stroke victim that we have in the White House, alleged stroke victim that we have in the White House, and his impulses. This government is by far the worst presidency that we've seen. By far. Even the presidents pre-Civil War, they were corrupt, they were problematic, they made it might have led us to ruin, but the sheer scale of corruption, I don't think that there is an equal in American history to what we're seeing now. And some people actually like this, dude. Can you believe that? Some people actually like this. Some people think this is like based. These people are insane. They live on a different planet than you. We got 3.5 years left. Anyway, folks, that's what's going on right now. Any people with and after this, I want to take a look at someone, and they're so stupid too, because there's a review of part of the debate I had with Tim Pool, and Jesus Christ, we're gonna take a look at some of that. I'll take a couple callers first, but there's a review of some of the part of my Tim Pool debate from like a conservative, and I'm not even sure if they can make fully formed sentences, if they can hold complete thoughts in their head. It is like laughably deficient, the way they think. But let's bring in Gauntlet first. Yo, what up, Gauntlet? You're on the air.
Whoa, what's up? Hello.
How we doing? How we going?
Pretty pissed, honestly.
Yeah, bro.
I don't think I've ever would have thought, especially from the position that Bondi is in, that I would ever hear a conservative say there's free speech and there's hate speech. That's insane.
Yeah, bro. I mean, they don't give a fuck. They never gave a fuck, and it's just more evidence. Yep.
It's just like, I just feel like it's like a blatant taunt to fucking to liberals.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, what the fuck?
They make you say Orwell. They make you say it because, like, it literally is putting your face and putting their own their own supporters, rubbing their face in and say, like, accept this blatant contradiction, accept this cognitive dissonance, accept this like very, very clear contradiction. They're making their supporters be a party to a lie and to be party to a fraud.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, especially, I shouldn't expect anything different, especially after Trump is literally just now going like, oh, the Epstein files, it's a Dem hoax. Like,
Yeah.
that's literally like, oh, you're pissing on me and you're telling me it's rain. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah,
Anyways,
no
I'll get to the disagreement.
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. I think that there's like a synthesis between what you guys were saying on like live and learn versus what Destiny's advocating for in his position.
Okay.
That I think is the best position. And I think one of the issues with Destiny right now is I think he's like workshopping his like rhetoric on this or whatever, because I feel like he's been really unclear. Like on the WIC panel, he was like saying some unhinged shit, and even I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But then like later on he like backtracked. So but anyways, this is what I think works best. Okay. I think that the politicians like saying like, Mamdani, Schumer, Biden, Obama, all these people, seeing that like collage of all the Dem leaders, politicians disavowing, I think that does send a good and strong message, especially to moderates and normies. And I think and it signals to them like, hey, we're the party that doesn't want violence. We're going to turn the rhetoric down. If you don't want violence, you should come to us. But I also think that the position that Destiny has is probably good, but it should only be taken up by like Dem influencers type people, because then do you want to go? Or
no, you finish. Sorry.
Because I think if we don't do the unilateral disarmament and we say, I will disavow when Trump disavows, I think that's good, because not only can you signal to Trump that he needs to do that, but you can also say, look, our leaders are doing it, and then you have the moral high ground as well.
Yeah, so I think there are two steps to this conversation. The first is understanding what, quote unquote, the Destiny position even is. And then second, it's evaluating what you just said, okay? And what I understand what you just said is like that there's a politician stance, which is to remain pure, and then there's an influencer stance, which leverages that pure stance, but maintains this kind of like refusal.
Attack.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my position. I don't think that's Destiny's position. I think he thinks everybody should be the refusal to condemn unless Trump does.
So that's what you take to be the synthesis. So, but first I need to understand what the position even is. Like, because I don't know that there's anything to it. Because on the one hand, I have heard Stephen say, it's bad that this occurred. I don't want this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he says he refuses to condemn. I don't know what the difference is between saying something is bad and it shouldn't have happened and then condemning it. Like, what do you see as the difference? Like, it seems like those are equivalent things. So it seems like he's already condemned it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, that's why I'm saying, like, I think he's like trying to work out the rhetoric on that side. Something that he said during the peers panel was he said that you're not asking me how I feel. You're asking me for a public statement. And then you couldn't really hear it because they were shouting over him. But he said, like, I feel horrible about it, but I'm not giving you a public statement of condemnation. So that's the best that I can understand.
What I mean is, like, if you say it's bad, it shouldn't have happened, I feel horrible about it, isn't that already a condemnation?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. It seems like he wants to stand hard on it, but then it just seems so horrible to just not. And he backs up and says it is a horrible thing, but tries to say it in like a distance tone and not like a personal statement. Like I don't know.
Yeah. So
I'll admit, like, his rhetoric is kind of confusing on it right now.
I'm just gonna step way back. So, like, if you ask me what I really thought is happening, is I think that there's like kind of two ways I'm interpreting, or two or three ways in which I'm interpreting what's going on. One is a general desire for Democrats and left-wing creators to be more offensive. Like, we should not be on defense on this. And like, especially when it comes to like violent or insightful rhetoric or whatever the standard is here, hateful rhetoric, whatever you want to call it. I'm hearing that from what Destiny is saying. And that I agree with 1,000,000,000%. I just want to be clear about that. So that aspect of it, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. Then there's another aspect of it, which is like, well, even though I'll call it bad, I'll say it shouldn't happen, I won't say I condemn it. And then it's just like, well, what do you mean? What's the difference? Is it the fact that you don't want to say those specific words, I condemn? Because I understand a condemnation to be something like saying something is bad and shouldn't have happened. Like condemning something is, it's a signal saying this is bad and should not have happened and I'm against it. Like that's what I understand a condemnation to even be. And so it feels like if you already say publicly, this is bad, it shouldn't have happened, you've already, like that to me is a condemnation. So you've already condemned it. And so taking the biggest step back in the third point here, and I'll let you respond, it just seems that there's a little bit, I don't know if it's ego, I don't know if it's just being oppositional, whatever it is. There's just like, I don't want to say whatever it is you want me to say in the way you want me to say, but I just don't understand, like, it looks horrible, right? It looks, if you already believe it's bad and you already say publicly it's bad, it shouldn't have happened. And the only hang up is, I don't want to play your part. I don't want to do it in the way you want me to do. I just don't know what the value out of there, because you've already admitted the essential element of it. And so optically, maybe just optically you think it looks bad. But I think the other, like, I just have a different intuition about what optically looks worse. I think optically it looks worse to say that you're unwilling to do an equivalent thing, which is something you've already said, which is that it's bad. But talk to me.
So there's maybe a couple of distinctions that I can think of. So I think this is why perhaps MAGA fights on the condemnation, right? So you can say something is bad, but then you cannot condemn it, I think. Like you defined condemnation, right, as saying it's bad and it shouldn't have happened. And I think what Destiny is just saying is the first part, and I think that's all he's giving, maybe, is like it's bad, or he is giving. Like I said, his rhetoric is confusing, but I think the reason they want the condemnation is to say it's bad
I think if
and
you
it shouldn't have happened.
Should it have happened? And I think you would say no.
Yeah, I don't think he. Yeah, I don't think he would say it should happen.
I think Andrew Wilson directly asked him that, and he said no.
Yeah.
And then Andrew was like, I don't believe you. He goes like, I don't believe you, but that is what he said. So it feels like his position is it was bad and it shouldn't have happened, and that basically means I'm against it, and that's basically like what I understand a condemnation to be. I think
the only statement that should be said is just, I will disavow when Trump disavows. I think that's
okay. I'm
probably
sorry.
the best.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, maybe there's different, better statements, but do you agree with me that a disavowal, a condemnations, those are all like basically in this essentially synonymous in this context? That saying something is bad, you're against it, shouldn't have happened. That's a disavowal, and it's a condemnation, right?
Yeah. I think
so you
him
would
saying
agree
that
he's already disavowed it and he's already condemned it. So that's how I understand those terms. So like it feels like he's already disavowed it, he's already condemned it, and there's just like this intuition that not using the particular phrase I disavow, I condemn, that there's some value add in terms of the signaling there, and I just like don't have that intuition. I don't share it, you know?
I mean I agree with you. I think he undermines his position by essentially doing the disavow. If his ultimate position was you shouldn't disavow, he's done that. Like it seems
that's what I mean. That's what I just like. I don't understand. So it feels like there's no value add there unless because ultimately you're gonna get stuck in this uncomfortable part where you're saying it's bad but you're not disavowing it, and it just feels weaselly. Like, okay, I don't want it to happen and think it's bad, but I'm not gonna condemn it. Like, I don't even understand. Like what's the point of that? I don't think it makes you look good.
Yeah, well, that's why I would say my synthesis works better, because you don't have to do the thing where you like disavow but don't disavow like Destiny's doing. I think you shouldn't do the disavow, right? You should say, I will disavow when Trump disavows, and then if they come at you for like, not disavowing, you say, look at our leaders. All of our leaders are doing it. I'm just waiting on yours.
But like again, even if that were the case, that there is a way to understand a condemnation as being separate than saying, are you saying that I shouldn't say it's bad? Are you using condemnation in the sense of like using the specific phrase I condemn or I disavow? Or are you
no, I just mean either you don't say it's bad, you don't say it's I disavow, you don't say any of that.
That's like that is asking for more than what even Stephen's doing, right? Stephen is saying it's bad, and Stephen is saying that it shouldn't have happened. So are you suggesting that he's suggesting that we shouldn't say it's bad or that it shouldn't have happened? That seems like it's not even okay.
I'm saying he has already undermined his own position by saying that it's bad because he's disavowing it. And I'm saying the better position, the value add is
okay. Then why should we go with his position if he can't even stay true to it? And then when he's pressured on Piers Morgan, he ends up disavowing it. right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
no,
like, if
no,
he himself
no.
can't hold to that because of the pressure, then why should we?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I'm not even saying to hold his position. Like I said, I think his position is too much. I think his
Okay.
position is too much. It's untenable. That's why I'm talking about the synthesis.
So why
That's
not?
why I'm
why
saying,
even synthesis? Why just be like, okay, it's bad, but when we say
because
it's bad,
I
it's
think
bad,
there's
we
a value
condemn
add
it.
in my synthesis. I
Okay.
think there's a value add in my synthesis, right? The value add that I think exists. You could fight me on this. In the synthesis is you get the attack from the media apparatus of the Dems, where you say, I will disavow when Trump disavows. And that's all you say. I will disavow when Trump disavows. But then if they try to get you on the moral purity,
Yeah, it's
you just say,
bad.
look at our leaders. You just say, look at our leaders.
You look like
But you don't disavow.
But the thing is, I think you look like an asshole when you do that. I just think you
You
look like an
think,
asshole.
you think that's Weasley?
I think that if people were to take that tact, like if I would feel super uncomfortable trying to operationalize that, because it would mean that they would get to like push and push and push and be like, you want to? It's like the will you condemn Hamas, right? Why is will you condemn Hamas so effective? It is effective. It's super effective.
I think there's probably different dynamics there in the way Hamas.
Okay, you can say that, but I'm just saying like it's a lot easier if you're just saying what you believe, right? Because I do condemn it and I do disavow it, and basically you're suggesting that I not say what I actually feel, even though I don't know the best way. I think that Stephen, I watched that entire discussion. I think it was in a very tough spot in terms of like what to say, because I think that he does disavow it, or at least that is the implicit position. I mean, like, it really is, but like because if he's like,
no,
okay,
it is. That's why I say he's undermining himself. He is undermining himself.
So holding true to this thing, like I won't disavow until Trump. Like, why not just? I don't understand the value there. And I think that he's already undermined it by saying it's bad and it shouldn't have happened. I just view that as equivalent with, and maybe he's right.
I agree with you. It's
maybe
equivalent.
You guys are right
it's
that there's like some incredibly important purpose to not either saying it in the terms that the conservative is asking you to say it in, or
no. I don't care about the terms. I don't care
about
bad versus disavow. Like I agree with you. Those are equivalent things. I don't. We don't need to get hung up on the wording there.
Yeah.
Those are equivalent. I'm saying that the value add is that we, for at least 10 years, have been doing the disavow, and I think there's a salient point in that. Even if Kamala had won the election, it's actually fucking horrific that it would have been as close as it if it were, because that election was as close as it is, we're already in a horrific spot. And to say that the Dems just continue the same tactic and we're just eking out, a loss or a win, I don't know. It seems like the attack while still pointing to our leaders. I think that does add a value because it shows that our leaders are pure, but we're not afraid to attack.
Maybe I want to push on you a little bit, but first there's a super chat that says what he's saying is giving Repubs the easy auto win doesn't help. If you have one side say you should disavow, the side asked does so. Two sides say one side seems responsible for that. No, I think that you say, listen, this is wrong, and I don't think that you can blame Democrats for it. I mean, you can say it in even the same sentence. You can't blame Democrats for it, and Republicans do it worse. Like, I don't know that this is giving them the win. You can just say, this attack was horrible, and you know why this kind of shit happens? It happens because of people like you, and so it's your fault. So, like, you don't have to give up, like, the side to condemn it. I think that that's just, like, a poverty of creativity. And then separately, I'm like, really, this proves too much. This kind of argument, like, look at what we did. We tried this and it hasn't worked, and so we might as well get our candidates to do porn, right? We tried not doing porn for the longest time, so we might as well try porn. Like the argument of, well, we tried the other thing and it didn't work. Like it seems like that proves too much. I feel like you need some additional evidence independent of it, the quote unquote whatever strategy quote not working. And again, I think that again is like too far. We had successful elections in recent history. I mean, I feel like, if anything, DGG stresses that before 2024, there were like multiple Democratic wins. And so I just don't think that, well, because we lost one election, we should try, everything should be opposite or things should be different than what they were. Like maybe we adjust something that actually hurts us. And maybe we're adjusting the wrong thing in terms of the violence meter. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. And I agree with you that and I'm not just looking at the one election. I agree with you. Like it's like a back and forth thing. But I think the scary and bad thing is that it is a back and forth thing. Like especially after 2020, but even before, there should be no like it should be landslides for Dems across the board with Trump. Like the fact that it's not, I think, is a disgrace to the country. Unfortunately.
Okay. I mean, we agree with that. So like, let's not say things we agree on. And the case you have to make is that doing this little, it feels like a word game. It does feel like a word game because it feels like we are willing to, in some versions of it, say that we disagree with what occurred, which I take to be like some version of a condemnation, and just like play this kind of little, well, you do it first. You have to make the case that that will help us get out from under this predicament. And I don't have that intuition. Maybe other people have that intuition, but that has something to do with like what we think either A, will change behavior of Republicans, or B, change like voting patterns. And I'm just like, I'm not convinced that that case has been made.
Do you think that with the Dems always constantly apologizing and condemning and doing this, and Republicans never do that, do you think that it hurts the Dems, or do you think that strengthens the Dems?
All else equal,
I think it makes us look weak.
So as between what and what, right? So you have the control group, which is the status quo, is Dems condemn. By the way, Republicans did condemn this shooting. I mean, you're basically saying Dems are more hinged in their rhetoric.
Wait, Republicans condemned this shooting? Is that what you said?
I just want to make clear about my language. Like, Republicans obviously condemned the shooting of Charlie Kirk, right?
Well, yeah.
Right, yeah. So what we're talking about is not the asymmetry in terms of condemning this shooting. Right? We're talking about as when I say rhetoric, right?
Yeah, but like the issue is like, sorry, I should be more clear in what I'm saying. I guess the Republicans do condemn, but they always condemn the shooter because the shooter is always a leftist. So it's
so why don't Democrats just like blame Republicans? Like, so if what you're saying is, yeah, Republicans blame Democrats, the Democrats should blame Republicans, and they do, by the way. A lot of them do. So what is the asymmetry? If the asymmetry is condemning violence, I think that there is an asymmetry, not on the Charlie Kirk specifically, but other cases where either it wasn't condemned or there was like less whatever language about it. There is an asymmetry. I think that that is clear, but I don't understand why that proves any point. Why does that prove that the strategy, or why does it have a tendency to show that the strategy that's being proposed is beneficial? That's what I'm not seeing. Yes, there's an asymmetry. Yes, on net, I mean, I guess the existence of an asymmetry as opposed to a symmetry probably hurts Democrats, although, you know, I could be convinced of that also, that it's a net benefit in the sense that it makes Democrats look more hinged compared to Republicans. I'm not sure about that. I'm not convinced by that. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm willing to grant that on net probably it benefits Republicans, but that's not what you need to show. What you need to show is that making it more symmetrical by bringing us all down a peg is going to help the Democrats.
I mean, my perception, and I could be wrong here, it could just be the circles that I'm in, is my perception is that the majority of the public, and I think polls show this, I'd have to double check, the majority of the public thinks that violence comes from the left. And I think that stems from the fact that the Democrats are always the ones apologizing, but the Republicans don't do it.
How are the Democrats apologizing? I don't understand. Which Democrat is apologizing?
Hold up. When I say, sorry, I'll be more clear.
Yeah.
When I say apologize, I just mean condemning. And I think it's fair to say that if one side is like, I condemn this person, and then they hear that that person is on the left, it sounds like an apology from the left because it's the left's fault for radicalizing, blah, 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 blah.
So let's take a Republican shooter, right? Some right-wing shooter. Okay. All else equal, the Democrats should condemn that, right? Both because it's the wrong thing to have happened, and because it's to their advantage to condemn that, right?
Yep.
And so the Democrats condemned this, let's say, this hypothetical right-wing shooting, and let's say that the Republicans are either making jokes about it or they're kind of like not addressing it, or milquetoasts condemning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Like they did with the shooter the same day that with Kirk.
Okay,
right?
But the Democrats are doing their optimal strategy when it comes to right-wing shooters, right? Because they're condemning it. Because okay. And now there's a left-wing type shooter. I'm not saying that that's what happened with Charlie Kirk. And you're like, well, what should the Democrats do? Well, the Republicans obviously condemn it. Now the question is, what should Democrats do? Don't you have to show me that the beneficial thing is for Democrats that behave like Republicans do for the Democrat shooters? And then my question is like, what is the case for that?
The Republicans aren't, I mean, they're condemning it, quote unquote. But again, the problem isn't that they're condemning it. The problem is that they're blaming it on the left. You know, we see this crazy shit with Trump saying it's, you know, the radicals and the extremists on the right are good and the extremists on the left are bad. You know, the left is scum. Like, so when you have attack from the Republicans and the Dems are like, you know, oh, we condemn because, you know, maybe it's a left, even if it's not a leftist, they're going to blame it on the Dems, right? And if we look like we're okay, can we agree on this? If the left is the one condemning only, really, because that's what it is always, then because it's put on them as it's a leftish attacker usually, right? It looks like the Dems are claiming culpability, correct? To a normie, probably, right?
I'm not so sure. So if there's a lefty shooter and it's condemned, does it look like the Democrats are taking culpability? I'm not sure about that. I think sometimes Democrats, they're careful about their statements and they're like, this is a crazy person, you know, this has no place in our movement. I'm not sure that those such statements, perhaps they seem like they're apologizing. I'm not sure. I don't have a strong view on that. Maybe.
Okay. I feel like it's pretty obvious that it makes the Dems.
So when there was that shooter,
some culpability.
Right? Remember that trans shooter who shot up a bunch of kids?
Yeah.
And like Democrats condemn it. Do you feel like that's them? One, like they don't align with that. They kill.
Well, no, I know they don't align with it, but everybody thinks it's the radical leftists because what did the Republicans do? They blame the leftists because the leftists support trans people and the trans.
All right, so let's actually do this. All right, so we have. We're trying to find out the asymmetry, okay?
Okay.
And on the one, this is a little chart. So I'm making a little chart. And here I'm going to put left shooter. And here I'm going to put right shooter.
Okay.
And here I'm going to put left response and right response. Okay, and we're going to split it in half. So currently, when there's a right-wing shooter, what should the left response be, right? It should be condemn. Fair?
Condemn, not only condemn, attack the right and say, this is the right's radicalization, look at the rhetoric, look at Trump, look at all, yeah.
Condemn, and so these are two things, right? Condemn, attack the right.
Yeah.
And let me get you right. So, and obviously the right, when it comes to left, they're condemning and attacking the left, right?
Yeah.
Attack left. So help me out with the asymmetry here. So you're suggesting when there's a right-wing shooter, the right wing's response is not to condemn, right?
Well, no. It'll be to condemn, but they're condemning them
and attacking the left,
saying they're a left. Yeah.
Okay. And then, what are you suggesting that the strategy should be for a left shooter? If for the left wing?
For the left wing,
to make this parallel, you would say the left should condemn and attack the right.
Yep.
But then, aren't you basically saying that destiny is wrong? Because you're saying in order to be symmetrical, you actually should condemn.
I mean, perhaps, yeah, perhaps. It's just, it's the issue is like here's the problem. I guess no, sorry. This is why it's tricky with the right. I'm sorry. Maybe my language is just like really inaccurate. The right is always gonna condemn right, but like it's never like a condemnation that they ever have to take on themselves. It's always like it's always just an attack. It's never like a sort of, you know, this is. Yeah, I guess
when does like when there's a left-wing shooter, when do Democrats are like, yes, this is all of our faults and we shouldn't have pursued trans ideology, and this is like, when do the Dems do that? I don't see them do that when there's like a left-wing shooter. Like, this is all a problem of us accepting communism. They never do that kind of shit. They don't own it in the way that you're saying the right
I know they
should
don't own it. I'm not. Yeah, no. I know. It's a combination of so many things. It's just like. It's hard because one, I mean, I think we agree. The right wing has a way more stronger like propaganda operation than the left does in terms of media. So they get to push it way harder that, you know, this person's always on the left, this person's always on the left. And then so what happens is, you know, you like, for example, the trans shooter, right? That's, you get the trans shooter and you get the left being like, this is horrible, we should condemn violence, blah, 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 blah. And they're not saying, hey, this is a person on the left, okay? But the right is telling everybody, and it's getting to everybody because of how large their media operation is, that this is a person who's been radicalized by the left because they're trans. So in that scenario, it looks like the left is apologizing, basically. I mean, I feel like that's a fair
So isn't the problem then, like, so why don't you just condemn and then just be super based in messaging in terms of, like, you know, I don't know, being, I think you're saying you should be sneaky and you should be like, should you lie? Are you saying the Dems should like lie like the Republicans do?
No, I'm not saying you should lie. I'm just saying that, like I said, the politicians or political leaders should condemn, because I think they reach normies better.
Okay, yeah. So, but this
have a wider voice.
I understand that what you're talking about are like influencers, and that the influencers should behave differently than the politicians.
Yeah, I understand that on a practical level, that's probably hard. It's not like, it wouldn't be hard for like the Republicans.
Yeah, because what if you have a Democratic politician who's being asked, like, yeah, you were on with this influencer and he won't condemn this. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
It just feels like this feels so complicated. Why don't we just like say the truth and be on attack? I don't understand like why we have to do rules for politicians and you know, differences between you know, politicians and influencers. And influence should be based, but like the general public should, like, they should not follow politicians. They should follow. I think this is just seems like it's overcomplicated.
It is complicated. I just the frustrating thing to me, and maybe Destiny's strategy is wrong, but the most frustrating thing to me is it seems like, and maybe you and me just disagree on this because you see it differently, but it seems to me that the left is losing in these instances where the right can just push everything onto the left. The left is basically the only one who condemns in any sort of real reality. And then because it's all been pushed onto the left, left
you're
looks
just saying
weak,
for
and
the
it looks like they're
quote-unquote left
apologizing.
shooter, right? For the quote-unquote left. And remember, in reality, we just have disagreements oftentimes of like between, are they left, are they right-wing shooter? And so, yeah, you're saying like the Democrats lose this messaging war. One, I don't know that I'm necessarily convinced by that. Maybe it's the case, and my intuition is that that's right, that they lose a lot of these messaging wars, if for anything, because Republicans have always like done well on that like tough on crime shit. Destiny refuses to take demands from Republicans and won't condemn Trump. He wants to pressure that condemnation. Okay, I mean, we can talk about that in a second. But like, all I'm just saying is, I take the issue of like who loses in these different social media situations or these different narratives to be a distinct question from like what should be done. Okay, so Democrats lose, but like, why do we think that lying?
Well,
I'm not saying lying like the Republican. I'm just giving a bunch of stuff that Republicans might do, right? Lie, they deflect, they obfuscate, they ignore, right? Like, why do we think that doing this will help the Dems?
Well, I mean, maybe this is not the line, but I mean, obfuscation. I mean, I think every politician does that, right? Like they, you know, say their words in a specific way. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to do. I mean, you know, every politician is doing that with like Israel, no matter what side they're on, pretty much. It seems to be the case. But
okay, I don't know. This is like super, and I'm imagining situations, and I know that you've carved out the politicians, but imagine a situation like, let's say that I try to take this rule, and like, one, you're asking me to like, when these shootings are happening, and we don't actually know, right? Like, so we're in real time, right? Real time, some shit's happening. Game time decision. We don't know what the influence is, right? So if it's a right winger, I'm sure we're gonna condemn the right wing shooter, right? We're gonna condemn the shooter, right? Like now I'm holding back a condemnation that I actually have to like until we determine, was this a right wing shooter or a left wing shooter? Do we know? Like, but we all know, right? Like if it were clearly a right wing shooter, you'd be like, condemn it right away. These are only in the cases where it's like an ambiguous shooter or a left wing shooter, right? So yeah. At that point, right? Like you're losing time on coming out and strongly, forcefully condemning political violence. You look weak. There are people who will be like, why haven't you come out and condemned this? Why haven't you addressed this? Both for influencers and politicians. It just seems like a huge fucking risk for certain people, especially when the right thing to do is to condemn all political violence. So I was like, I don't understand. You can be based in your messaging and say Republicans suck. This is why, and this is obviously horrible. I don't agree with it. But now let's talk about what Trump is doing. He hasn't condemned X, Y, Z. Like that just seems way easier.
Because while you're waiting for like the 2 or 3 or even week or more now that we have to see wherever this guy lands. Okay. You know, while you're waiting and you're like, okay, I condemn. What is Trump doing? He's saying it's the radical leftists. The radical leftists are the problem. It's the radical leftists.
Yeah, he's lying. But I thought you said that we shouldn't lie. I mean, he's lying because he doesn't know.
I know. And I'm not saying we should lie. I'm just saying that's why you just say I will condemn when Trump condemns when you got this ambiguous issue. And they're attacking you. If they're not attacking you, then because I mean, like I said, if they disarm, we disarm, right?
I think it looks horrible.
Okay. I think
I think it looks horrible. And not only do I think it looks horrible, I just think that like it's not true. Like we do condemn it, and so we're just basically playing this game. And I just where in some cases we've already condemned it because we've said it's bad and it shouldn't have happened, and so we're just playing this like you do it first, and like I don't think it looks good. I just don't think it looks good. I think it's just better to just be like, yeah, it's bad. And by the way, then go on offense, right? It's bad. I condemn it. But by the way, where the fuck are you? I mean, you don't give a shit about this, and you just go in with based rhetoric and you just go in with based attacks and you go on offense. I don't see that as inconsistent with just being like, yeah, get this out of the way, condemn it, because you do condemn it because it's the truth. And like playing this game, it's going to lead you in trouble. And I think it looks, like, I'm not convinced it looks good. Maybe you can convince me it looks good. I haven't seen it look good.
I think it's
I'm open to it looking good. I just don't think it does.
I think it's hard because maybe you're not even in this instance. You're not even looking for what looks good. You're just looking for what looks better, and it's hard for me to see.
Well, so I'm saying,
yeah, sorry, okay, yeah. But it's hard for me to see like Trump doing the attack on the left hardcore, calling everybody fucking crazy, and then be like, oh, I don't. Does it not feel? Maybe this is just me. Does it not feel?
What do you feel feels more impactful? If I'm like, listen, I'm not going to condemn shit until Trump condemns all his violence. Do you think that looks better? And then they press you, or obviously this is a fucking disgusting act. I would condemn it, but like, look at Trump. Trump won't condemn shit from his side. He's using this opportunity to blah 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 blah. Which do you think seems more compelling? This kind of like, I'm not going to do it, or of course this is fucking reprehensible. But like Trump, look at what Trump is doing, and then you do that. I feel like one feels stronger, and it doesn't feel like. I feel like you're inviting to be on defense. Ironically, the whole point of this is to be on offense, but you're just inviting people to attack you more and more. And it's not even on a ground that you want to really stand on because you don't actually believe that it shouldn't be condemned. Like you actually believe that it is bad and you actually do personally condemn it. So I would understand inviting attacks when you're like standing on some principle that matters and you want to convince people of it. But like you actually do, and I understand there's like a whole meta layer to this, but I just like, I think that it's very hard to recommend doing this if you actually do think it's condemnable, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you convinced me on like the word game thing. The reason I tried to find a synthesis is because it is I think a difficult position that Dems are in right now. Like I don't necessarily think it's the strongest position to just say I condemn. No,
you don't just say that. Just be like I condemn and look what they're instituting a censorship regime. They're talking about banning hate speech. They want to go after your rights. Like yeah, you can definitely just say yeah, this is fucking horrible. It shouldn't happen. But it's built out of an atmosphere like this kind of shit wasn't happening when Biden was like, and you just say it like that. And I understand that there's a big deal of that. DGG energy is like we should be more on offense. Totally agree with that. I absolutely emphatically agree with that. But just like I don't know that taking a stand on something you don't even really truly believe in the substantive level, I don't think it looks good. That's just my intuition. But again, I can be proven wrong. I just every time I see it in action, I think it looks like you're a weasel. It looks like you're unhinged. That's my take. But that's whatever.
Yeah, I mean this is why I wanted to argue. I don't know where I fully stand on it. I feel like I could be convinced on either. It's just if I could finish, it's just really hard for me because I think it does make Dems look weak to do the condemnation, but I think it also makes them look bad to not do it. But I think it also looks horrible that Trump gets to just push this insanity.
You think it looks bad
with
for
impunity.
Like putting aside? I understand that this isn't ascribed to politicians. You're explicitly carving out politicians, but let's just take the politicians just for a second. Do you think it looks bad when like Obama or Biden comes out and says this is horrible, this is not in the best interest like of America? You think that looks bad for a Democrat? I think that looks good.
I think it looks good. I think that's why I just, in the same way, like it's like there's pros. I think there's just like a pro and a con to it. Like I said, like it's a good message to signal to like normie people, but I think it can also signal a little bit of weakness. I think, unfortunately, with the way that the Republicans attack and the media apparatus that they have behind them.
That's pretty much just that's vibes, right? Like in terms of it.
Yeah, that's vibes. Okay. That's why I'm saying. I'm trying to work because I don't know where I fully stand on it, but
yeah,
so
I would just be like, this is what I think. I think we ought to be authentic and true and based and go on offense, and that part of the critique I think is totally cool, and I welcome people to be more aggressive, and because what's going on from the right is totally reprehensible, and it's correct to say that they won't accept anything, nothing will ever be good enough. So that part is true. I just like, I don't know why you can't just be like, yeah, this is bad, because you actually do think it's bad. That's what's great. Is like, tell the truth, be authentic, and then spend time bashing. Like, I'm going to condemn it. Are you going to condemn January 6th? You still haven't done it, right? You still haven't done it? Wait, so I just condemned this attack. Have you condemned that yet? Have you condemned this or that? And the problem, when you get into this game of escalating condemnations or whatever, and they have a worse skeleton closet, or closet, what is the fucking phrase? Skeletons in their closet.
Skeletons in their closet.
You're going to win. You're gonna win. Like, if you just stay base and like with respect to your principles, you're gonna win. Like, did you make excuses when Trump just fucking like extrajudiciously killed all these people? Like, have you condemned Trump for sending people to fucking Sikot, this torture dungeon? Like, and now you're into fucking media, and now they're defending Sikot, and now they're defending the extrajudicial killings, and now they're defending the National Guard deployment. When you actually just condemn, be like, yeah, fine, I'll fucking condemn it. No problem condemning a fucking killing. You haven't condemned the National Guard, have you? Have you condemned the fucking Sikot, the torture dungeons? That feels like way more powerful than just being like, nope, not gonna condemn, not until they do. Like, that feels more defensive, you know?
I think I would totally agree with you if he hadn't won this election, and that's why I'm on the fence, because to me, the Sikot moment, the National Guard moment was January 6th, and that was just so fucking beyond the pale that the fact that he won, that's what makes me question.
He won for other reasons though, right? Like, I don't think January 6th helped. I don't think that they're...
No, I'm not saying January 6th helped, but I'm saying like the fact that it didn't hurt him enough to make him lose, I think is fucking insane.
I mean, it was a really bad fucking economic global thing with this inflation stuff. And so, I mean, it was a close election, all things considered. And
yeah, but
across
that's bad
the world, too. No, I mean, I agree it's bad, but it's like, that doesn't prove, right? The fact that the loss was horrible and that he should have, she should have won, that doesn't prove that the recommendation of the strategy here is to be more like Trump in that unhinged regard. I don't know that proves it. And my always take on all this fucking the shit about Democrat stuff is get it out of the way, right? Like, yeah, I condemn burning the Wamos for sure, but like let's talk about the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil. Like, that's what I do on Tim Pool is I always try to press on offense. And so when he says something about Chicago and Bolden's like, I don't know about this, Tim Pool. Like, let's just put like, so you're gonna support illegal deployments? So what about this? Like, in my opinion, and not everyone, listen, I'm not saying that I know perfectly. I'm fucking a loser who focuses on minutia, and so I do not have the pulse on vibes or the American people. So please, if you disagree, put it in the comments, put it in the chat that you vigorously disagree. My intuition is I like to be on offense. I always like to be on offense. I like to be in control of the conversation. And how I do that, part of how I do that is saying my honest beliefs. If something is bad that happens from the left, yeah, of course I condemn that shit. That's bad. Yeah, when Biden did that was bad. But when I actually don't think what happened from the left is bad, I stand up for it and defend it. But when I do, I don't like waste time doing this little game and looking like a weasel. But again, I am not stating that I'm the best debater, that I know the best about vibes. That's just my take.
Okay. By the way, you do fucking awesome on Tim. I don't know how
bro.
I don't know how you didn't burst out laughing when that one guy you debated. He was like, when trans people are biological weapons. Yeah. I was like, what the? I have one more question. I'm curious on like the Nixon versus Steele thing. And I know you've said that you disagree with the president not being able to be sued civilly.
Fitzgerald?
Or yeah, Nixon versus Fitzgerald. I thought it was against some steel plant. Sorry.
You're thinking of Youngstown Steel case.
Yeah, that was the one that gave him the president immunity from civil suits, right? Am I correct or am I
Nixon
wrong?
versus Fitzgerald is that case.
Oh, Nixon versus Fitzgerald. Okay. Okay. So I know you said that you disagree, and the president should be able to be sued civilly. But
as a matter
think,
of constitutional law, I disagree. Not as a matter of policy. I think that the Congress should pass a statute like giving a great deal of immunity for the president from civil, but I don't think it's constitutionally required.
Yeah, I think something that I was just wondering was, I think initially when I heard this and I heard the rationale, I think I agreed with it. But then, like, when you see like Trump right now, who's like, I guess like trying to take like licenses from, you know, media corporations, like, I feel like that's grounds to sue him civilly, right? I mean, wouldn't that fall within civil, or would that fall on his government agency? Or
oh yeah, no,
like, would that
very hard to imagine liability directly for the president. But remember, that immunity applies to the president in his personal capacity, not the U.S. government. Okay, so the U.S. government is different than the president. What the immunity doctrines, what they do is they protect the president in their personal capacities. Okay, so you can't sue the president for damages for the person of the president, and you can't now, right? You can't charge a former president in his personal capacity, right? But that doesn't mean that you couldn't sue the government or some other agency potentially for damages liability, because the government does open itself up to lawsuits in some cases. It waives sovereign immunity under the Federal Tort Claims Act and other related statutes. So just because there's immunity doesn't mean there's no remedy. The absolute immunity doctrine only applies to the president's personal capacity.
Okay, I have a question on just like a hypothetical so I can understand. So like if Trump, like if, for example, like if Trump said like, I don't like watermills and, you know, I don't like this watermill company that makes them. And then he like, I don't know, builds a dam to stop them from building their watermills. Would that be the government that's liable, or would that be Trump, or would that just be
depends
nothing?
on what? I mean, sometimes there's no damages remedy. You could probably sue the president and the related agencies in their official capacity for an injunction, but that doesn't mean that you can sue the president in their personal capacity for damages. The qualified immunity doctrines and absolute immunity doctrines are protecting these officers in their individual capacities. So yeah, you can sue the police department perhaps for an injunction, or you can sue the police department for a settlement of some kind. This is preventing you from suing the police officer in the context of qualified immunity, and in the context of the absolute immunity doctrine from Nixon versus Fitzgerald, it's preventing you from suing the president as an individual for damages related to his official acts. That's what it's a personal immunity for the president. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be other forms of relief, including injunctions that flow to the president in his official capacity, injunctions that flow to the other agencies in their official capacity to like stop the dam that you proposed in your hypothetical, or money lawsuits in some other context. For example, if the government has opened itself up for liability by waiving some amount of sovereign immunity in other cases. And so maybe you can sue for money damages the U.S. government directly.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thank you for chatting.
No worries. Thank you. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Thank you.
Interesting conversation. I don't see this guy, what's his face anymore, North, but so I'll just go with the order, and then eventually I'm going to move on so I can read this. So don't join the call. CID, what's up? Yo, you're on the air. CID.
Oh, what's up?
Yo, what up, bro?
You hear me already?
It's a little bit, I mean, try talking closer to the mic.
I'm using the headphones. Is this any better?
Give me a full sentence.
Can you hear me when I'm talking right now like this?
It's kind of shitty, but it can do if you just keep it terse, perhaps.
Okay. So I was only briefly listening, and I don't agree with kind of the DGG narrative on how we should be responding to the right and their response to like MAGA's response and Trump's response. But I just had a question on like an idea I had and like how you think it might play.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
So, you know, like the Charlie's murderers, website where they're doxing and canceling people.
Yeah, it's like the compilation. It's their cancel culture repository.
Do you think that we could start something, or someone could start something that is like Melissa's murders, and compile all the Melissa Hortman people that made fun of it, or people that made fun of political violence perpetrated by the right against the left, and just kind of do the same thing, if that would play well.
Here's my response to that. I think it might if it were some other figure, but I don't think it'll work for Melissa Hortman or whatever for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't think it'll work because she wasn't as prominent as a person, right? So part of the reason why you don't have tons of videos of right-wingers celebrating the death of Melissa Hortman is because no one knew who this was across the country like they knew who Charlie Kirk was, right? So Charlie Kirk was a brand name for political observers and definitely known among insiders. And so it's in a way that was way beyond the significance of the Minnesota legislators. So the amount of stuff that exists, probably of unhinged material on this person, is almost certainly way more limited and not as fucking unhinged as some of the shit you're seeing for Charlie Kirk. Because A, she wasn't as well known, and B, she didn't provoke the passions the same degree that Charlie Kirk did. So one, I think it's a bad idea because you're likely not to find as much shit, not because right-wingers are just inherently better, but for the reasons I just stated. That's one thing. Two, as someone else has pointed out in the chat, like this hypocrisy argument, they don't give a fuck, right? I would say, like, recommend, compile Republicans looking bad whenever they do bad shit. And guess what? We already do that. And we already produce receipts and clips and all sorts of shit. That's basically left-wing Twitter is doing that all the time. But
they're not losing their jobs. It's not like this coherent campaign, like as you say, like industrialized campaign against them.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that maybe the hypocrisy could inspire people to be like, you know what? Like, what the fuck, you guys? A sitting senator made fun of the death of this person. So, and I've definitely seen a bunch of people make fun of or deny or say it's like a false flag or whatever excuse they have of a ton of right-wing violence perpetrated on the left or on what is perceived to be the left. And I think that in the wake of this, that could actually motivate people to, start contacting employers and start getting people fired. And that might be something that they would understand in this scenario. And it would also change the conversation if it got picked up by any sort of mainstream media.
I'm not sure it's likely to have that effect for a couple more reasons. One is, I think part of the reason why the cancellation campaign is being successful for the Charlie Kirk case is it has behind it the force of the federal government. That is, the federal government, to the extent that you're not behaving in accordance with their cancel culture, the federal government is complicit because they're basically saying that if you don't comply, we're going to go after you with prosecutions. If you don't comply, we might withhold your funding. If you're a school, if you're an employee, we'll do no more business with you. If you're a government contractor. And so you're a lot less likely to scare people if you don't have the full weight of a corrupt federal government that's being wielded politically behind you. And number two is these people are fucking shameless. And so I don't think you're going to shame them into compliance. Might you hurt some MAGA, unhinged people? Yeah, but I don't want to, it doesn't seem like a positive project. I don't want to spend my time looking for these people. Maybe it makes sense in some cases to do this kind of shit, but I just think it's much likely to be less effective, especially when these people are bloodlusted from Charlie Kirk in a way that I think the general feeling of even-handedness and I guess protecting some people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death won't rise the passions of the left wing and the Democrats. I'd rather we spend our energies and capital on a positive project than that kind of shit. I just don't think it's likely to be fruitful and get the desired effect of either A, stopping the cancel culture, or B, making them reflect or anything.
Well, do you agree the cancel culture as MAGA would describe it in their mind in its first iteration during Trump's first term was successful and worked. Like
I think
the
it's grossly
cancellations of
overstated. Yeah, I don't think that there was mass cancellation in the way that they describe. I think like there was deplatforming for sure on like private platforms, but it's not anything like we're seeing now, and it has to do more with like violations of certain TOSs that I might even agree went too far. So like I'm not sure if it was that successful in stopping the propagation of these ideas. If anything, some attribute the deplatforming to the success of MAGA in that they were forced to create their own spaces that ended up being very fruitful, like the podcast circuits and these other networks that they created once they were pushed off some of the more mainstream things. So I'm not convinced one way or the other that this cancellation, whatever we suggested back in the day, if it was a thing, had the effect of actually preventing MAGA from, or the right wing from winning or succeeding. Well, clearly not, because we are in the situation that we're in.
well, no, but wouldn't it reframe the narrative in a way if something like this were to be done and it were to be picked up and reported on, uh, change the narrative around, left wing violence and just make people talk more about, right wing perpetrated violence as well, and not just like this one-sided framing that we're seeing right now. Even if it didn't work, even wouldn't changing the conversation be useful?
Maybe. I don't want to helm that project. I don't think it'll be as successful, and I'd rather just spend the time launching the attacks directly, not at like the voters, but at the like demonizing. I'm using demonizing here, but I mean like accurately describing the demonic forces at issue in the government, by which I mean the evil forces, by which I mean the people who are like trying to destroy our republic, and just like calling them out and actually, targeting the elites, not necessarily like the individual people and the individual voters or whatever. That's their game.
Right, but
they want to do it.
They won't respond to our arguments.
Who's they? You're not going to move some of these.
The right-wing influencers. The right-wing influencers, the right-wing elites, they're not going to respond to our individual arguments that we're making amongst ourselves or amongst the few right-wingers that are going to keep trying to debate or whatever. They're going to respond to some sort of push or cultural push that has some sort of base around it. And I don't know if that's the best, what I'd suggest is the best thing to do, but I'm just trying to think of ways that are constructive to frame what DGG is saying, which is just saying, don't condemn until they condemn, which will never happen. But if there's something that is making them talk about what we're saying when they aren't going to sit there and listen to the arguments we're making, but they will sit there and listen to like cancel culture, people on their side or what they see to be their side being fired, losing opportunities.
What do you think is going to happen because of that? I mean, what do you think will happen?
I think that there will be an equal. The right-wing influencers in media class.
They're like robots. They're machines. Their job is to push out lies and regime propaganda. And you're not gonna. I think you agree with that. Like they're not gonna be threatened in this context with like cancellation. They don't give a fuck. They're making their nut. So
yeah, but these private companies would care, no matter who it comes from. If there's like this huge, like pressure campaign against them about something one of their employees said, or something like that.
They're shameless. It's not going to be over Hortman. And if you're going after like the employers, okay, you made a joke about Hortman or something. Like they're probably like less clips of that though, because like I mentioned, Charlie Kirk was an incredibly famous figure.
There's less clips, so we're talking about individual people getting fucking sued for like tweets and posts on social media. There's tons of that.
So
around
targeting every MAGA person, just like if you identify a MAGA person, try to dox them and find their and anything unhinged that you can find to give it to employers and shit, like a nuclear game.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not going to be my project. I'm not sure what the effects of it would be, and so that's the best I can give you. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. It's not something I want to do.
the idea of holding up a mirror in a way that I think would be more fruitful than being like, I'm not going to condemn violence or say this was bad until Trump does it.
I just don't view it as a dichotomy where I have to accept one or the other. I mean, both could be good ideas, both could be bad ideas. I'm not particularly inclined to do either. But that's just me. Maybe it is a right idea. It's just not for me. I don't like it. Feels like a waste of
You
time.
don't like the idea.
I don't like it, but
well,
but
not you personally. I'm not saying like Pisco personally should sit there and spend his time like going through all these tweets and stuff, but you do have like an audience and stuff. You do have a voice. Like, what if people in your audience, what if people and the people that watch you started doing that? Or
no, I don't like.
You know what I mean?
I personally find it distasteful. I think that
Really?
we should. I do personally find it distasteful. So it's not something that I would support. Unless if you could show me that it would save the republic and it would cause there to be like a mutual de-escalation or something, or holding up a mirror would result in some benefit there. Maybe it would. Maybe you could convince me, but it's just not in my nature to do that kind of thing. I'm much more about
I can't say that it would change the republic or there would be de-escalation, but I do think there's a potential for changing the conversation.
Okay.
In a way that I haven't heard anyone. The conversation needs to be changed. It can't be this, do we condemn, do we not condemn, do we just condemn and then complain about why the right isn't condemning and say, hey, you guys aren't condemning? Like, I don't know. There's
this
gotta
narrative,
be something else.
this narrative, what we're going through right now, this is not going to last forever. Like, there will be other shit that comes up. In a couple weeks, we'll be talking about like fucking government shutdown or some shit. I just don't know that this is like the moment where we make the decision. It just feels like we should condemn political violence and attack Republicans always and be based in our rhetoric. And I just like don't understand the benefit to refraining from that, or like, let's find another strategy related to violence or shoot. Like, I don't know. Just like, I'm not convinced by it.
I think the condemnation is positive, and we should do that. And you could do that within some sort of campaign like this of like, political violence is bad all the time. Here are the people on the right that do it. And I don't know if
aren't we doing that for influencers? But you're saying we should do it for like normies, for normal commentators? That just feels like a bunch of like doxing shit. That
same thing they're doing.
I'm not good at it, and I feel like it is a little bit, frankly, a little distasteful. I don't know you're gonna win many friends being like, we're the doxers, and we're doxing everybody who's like just a normie commentator, and we're going to everyone's Facebook to do this kind. Maybe you think it's a good idea.
So do you think this is a losing strategy for MAGA? What they're doing?
What they're doing? Well, no, because they have the power, right?
Yeah, the doxing.
They have power. They have the government who's able to enforce their will there, and actually coerce.
Yeah, we have power in numbers, though. Like, we're more popular than them. MAGA's very unpopular.
Okay. I don't like it.
Right?
I don't agree. I think that
the population. Do you agree that there is like power in that, though?
Is there are there inherently power numbers? I suppose.
They're not a popular movement. Trump is not a popular president. These guys aren't popular.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know why
they're the guys with the guns and the guys who make the rules. They're in power. So even
but they're not going to shoot people at a corporation that don't fire somebody.
I'm not saying they're going to shoot, but they could withhold funding for it. They've already started like withholding money, withholding contracts for people they don't like.
Okay, so what could they do to like some of these private corporations that are getting on the bandwagon of firing their low-level employees?
It's not private public. They don't want to make enemies with the federal government, and because this federal government is political and corrupt, and so they don't want to make enemies. And so, yeah, same thing with schools. Schools don't want to invite the ire of Donald Trump, and so they don't want to lose funding from the federal government. So they're able to actually effectively wield a cancel culture with the arm of the federal government. That's what's happening.
So does the federal government just have all the power in our society?
They have a great deal of power. I'm not saying they have all the power. I'm not saying that you wouldn't be able to cancel some people. I don't know that it's the best use of our time. I don't know why I don't think it is. You can't right now, you don't have data or anything. Like I'm not convinced that it's a good use of my time or our time.
Yeah, it was just an idea. But what is a good use of our time?
I think building a positive project in the sense of building animosity against the Trump administration, calling out their garbage, supporting based Democratic candidates, and spreading good like rhetoric and propaganda in the positive sense, not in the lie sense, in the sense of like good messaging. That's what I mean by propaganda in that context, not anything nefarious.
Right.
But like
so
the doxing
who
stuff.
Should we be trying to reach? Who should we be trying to reach?
Is this 20 questions? I don't know. Independent voters, our own base, excite our own base.
It is kind of 20 questions because I came with an idea and you're just saying like, I don't know, we should just be trying to, build something positive and like, I don't know. I had like
so just because you have an idea, I'm not saying even that necessarily your idea is bad. I just like I think that a lot of what you're seeing right now in terms of the cancel culture has to do with the fact that the federal government is holding a. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna be right back. All right, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Is holding the reins of power, and they're able to like basically control their shit. And so yeah, I think that that's part of the reasons why it's so effective in a way that we haven't seen. Like we haven't seen this kind of hybrid cancellation mechanism that is ongoing, and I don't know that you're going to be able to fight against that. It seems like a losing battle, and it's just going to engender like laughs when you when like employers refuse to comply with the liberals' demands.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know that like what we are doing has been fruitful at all in fighting this Trump administration.
What do you mean what we are doing? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about like the way that we talk about them, the way that we interact with them, the things that our elected officials do, and I think you agree with the elected officials.
I know,
thing.
But like when I like my metric for whether or not we're doing something good are like, okay, did we stop Trump when we could have in the courts? Did we stop Trump when we could have with the continuing resolution? Are we saying things that I feel are going to set us up for a good election in the midterms? Are we running the right candidates? Are we having the right messaging? Like that's the kind of thing that I'm like, are we doing enough? But we haven't had an election yet. And when you're like, what we're doing isn't working, it means like, I need you to be a little bit more specific in terms of what you mean by that.
Well, I think because even though he's underwater, I think he's still polling too high on so many of these things. So like on himself, like personally, and then all of his agenda is still polling way too high. It's all insane shit. It's all destructive shit. And it's still mostly all above like 30% of the country is like, yeah, that's what I want. And in a sane world, that is not.
I don't know what you're saying. Like, yes, I agree. In a sane world, that wouldn't be it. Half the country is fucking stupid. I'm not
blaming you.
Half
I know
the
you
country,
can't do
half the
anything
country
about
is bought into fucking like this fucking propaganda, whatever. Half the country is like believes the fucking cult leader. It's not really half. It's more like whatever. What's the MAGA cult like? 32%, and then an additional like percentage support him based on like some other pragmatic concerns or whatever. But like, yeah, there's a significant majority that of his base that are like basically supporting his methods to destroy part of our republic. So that's all I'm saying. Like, okay, we agree on that. What's your point? Your point is like the country is in a bad state. Yeah, we elected Donald Trump for a second term. That's why we're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
You feel bad? Guess
no,
what? You should.
I'm not
Right?
I'm not trying to like say it's your fault or you're doing anything wrong or anything.
Yeah.
I'm venting a little bit, but I do think that there are things that we should think of outside of the political spectrum or like paradigm that we've been operating in up until this point. And so I'm just trying to think of like new things all the time, new ways of engagement. Something you said the other day that I've never heard anyone say is that some of these blue states should be looking into bolstering and funding state defense forces.
Yeah.
And that's a little heated right now, but I think that's like an interesting and unique idea that people don't talk about that much. So
I
I'm
appreciate that, man.
trying to think of ways that are, not talked about, not thought about in like the paradigm we're used to, because I think that's a big problem is so many of the people that people are watching, even on the left and liberals, are still operating in this, old world that doesn't exist anymore.
Hey,
And
well, I appreciate the creativity. If you want to try to cancel a bunch of grandmas or people who are putting Hortman memes or whatever the memes are, have at it. It's not. I don't think it's likely to be successful, but maybe I'm wrong. That's just my intuition. I'm not basing it off any like empirical thing. It's a little distasteful to me, to be honest, but that's just me. Thank you so much,
fair.
caller.
Yeah, have a good night.
Appreciate you, bro. Later. All right, I'm only doing the people that I saw because I'm not doing this all night because I do want to go somewhere. Yo, what up, Mug? Going once. Mug.
Me.
What's up? How can I help you?
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Let me put it on a speaker. As I'm watching your YouTube stream, so I'm a little bit behind.
Gotcha.
You hear me?
Yeah. What you got?
Okay. Sorry you got to put up with all these crazy callers, man.
You're
I feel
good,
like
dude.
none of us got much to say. But I got something to say.
What's up?
Loved your convo with Aaron. I don't know if it was yesterday, but I saw the upload of not the stream, but just the video itself.
Where it's like crazy motherfucking Tangy denies reality or whatever.
Yeah, and you got her double chin up there. I don't know if she appreciated that.
I didn't do that. That was my thumbnail person, and I don't think she appreciated it.
I'm no commie, but I have super sympathy where she's from and how she's like, you're in debate mode and whatnot, and she's like, no, you need to get the essence of what they're saying. But anyway, that's my shout out to Aaron. I wanted to talk about Destiny. Did you watch the whole Piers Morgan thing?
I did, yeah.
So I caught the last of what the caller before the last said, and I was definitely agreeing with what you were saying about how it doesn't feel like it's working. Like based on my vibes, politics, whatever that is, I think maybe appealing to the normies and condemning everything isn't working. We actually did a poll on this when it came to October 7th. Mehdi Hassan, he did a whole interview about this with, I think it was Breaking Points, and they say, what do you do when you're asked to condemn October 7th? And he says, I don't do that anymore. Like, I think people know and they catch on at this point that that's a talking point, and that's a strategy that's used to sway the conversation. And so I'm not so sure that condemning things, even though that might appeal to the normies, is the smart thing to do when appealing towards the more young radical type is maybe more effective. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about that. I mean, you're saying it's not working because we lost 2024?
But we look weak, and also because I think that would be not solely evidence of losing 2024.
Based on what? We look weak when? When do we look weak? When we say you shouldn't shoot fucking people in the head or in the neck? That looks weak.
No. When you're okay, so I think Destiny lost that argument.
No,
overall,
when do we look weak? Sorry, I asked the question. My bad.
When we say I condemn this thing in its only in a vacuum, and then you don't follow it up with another sentence. But when you do follow it up with another sentence, you look weaselly.
Yes,
so it's a lose-lose.
No, it's not weaselly. You say, of course I condemn fucking shootings in the middle of the street. What I want to know is why you don't fucking condemn Trump when he basically endorses violence by pardoning. You know the fucking shit there. So
and what would Piers Morgan say to that? Hang
on. Well, yeah. Well, Piers Morgan, it's kind of a different beast. What you have to do is this is my intuition on Piers Morgan. You have to include Piers Morgan as part of your attack. You have to ingratiate and like get Piers Morgan on your side, and you have to basically praise him and suck him off and be like, Piers, I know you've been strong on this. You've been very strong on it. I have, yeah. But the thing is, Piers, like unlike you and me, some people on this panel haven't been so. And then you get him on your side and you distract him with flattery, and so that's a Piers management issue. It's not like a fundamental rhetoric issue. It's a Piers management issue.
So we were asked to create a condemnation. My student group, a Republican group, approached us and they said, we want to make a joint effort where we come around this Charlie Vigil, and we want to say that we condemn violence. And we said, yeah, we're down with that as long as like you guys are also condemning violence. Are we supposed to go up like in front of everybody and we're supposed to say we condemn violence, and you guys kind of just watch on and like we're doing a mea culpa or a struggle session? And they're like, oh no, it's going to be you guys. And we're like, you're not coming up after us? No. And it cannot be done in a vacuum where we say, yes, I condemn this without saying the thing after that. You've said as much, but the problem is, and I totally disagree with you, is that when you do that to the people that you were going to convince anyway by condemning it are the people that don't want to hear the but after that. They don't want to hear the but. They want to hear that's it. The moment you say, but also these other things are happening, they're saying, oh my gosh, this guy just died. Why can't you just talk about that? They get mad about it.
You basically how I would handle is, Piers, I condemn violence all the time. Now Destiny couldn't say this because he doesn't, right? But in the Commodore case, so he couldn't use this strategy. But if you had, right, you could say, of course I condemn this. This is fucking atrocious. I was wanting to debate with Charlie Kirk. I of course don't want people to be killed for expressing a view. Of course that. But the real problem here isn't some crazy guy. There's always going to be crazy guys. The real problem is this government instituted attack on free speech, trying to make hate speech laws, category like that's what I mean. Like you can make the issue that you want to talk about, make it clear during your speech. You can condemn it and just move on. Suck Pierce off a little bit, give him a little bit of a. And Pierce, I know you're strong on this. You've always been strong on this. You've called out cancel culture on the left. You called out cancel culture on the right. So you've been consistent. But the problem is not everyone's been consistent. They haven't been consistent. And so that's what we say. Like, there's a lot of issues because the paradigmatic example people will provide are these Piers Morgan panels, but people just don't know how to run those panels. I've never been on them, but my intuition is you get a lot more sugar, you get a lot more done if you bring Piers into your confidence. Like, by the way, Adam Mockler did spectacularly. I thought Adam Mockler did a really good job on Piers Morgan. He didn't interrupt. He didn't interrupt until he was first called on, and then he was kind of using Piers against his enemies. And so I think that we should not think of the Piers Morgan debates as the only context in which these conversations happen. And oftentimes the problem in the Piers conversations aren't necessarily the positions, the substantive positions, but how one manages the moderator.
Absolutely. I agree the context is different, and I agree that you got to appeal to the moderator in a situation like Piers Morgan. But like your previous caller stated, I do think it's different with how the politicians handle it. And you make a good point. It's like, why can't we just have a consistent standard across the board where we just tell the truth and we say what we believe, and if we believe something is wrong, we should condemn it. But I do think to optimize a strategy, if we're going to do that, to be optimal, perhaps it is beneficial to say, I'm not going to cut off this radical element of my side, which I acknowledge exists, and in an ideal world, I would condemn, but I refuse to cut off this part of me that is this part of my coalition that is radical, because you don't cut off the part of yours that's radical. If we're playing this soccer game, right, and you're playing by different rules, I'm not going to keep playing by these same rules, even if it is an ideal rule.
So first of all, notice therefore, like, well, what is the coalition therefore of the radical elements? I thought I was being fucking lectured to for 2 months because I was like, oh yeah, the Vanguard are more proximate allies.
Pisco, you're right. Destiny was wrong. You were right. He was wrong. You were right. You were absolutely right that they need to be. We need to make room for them. That if whoever calls them,
I'm just noticing that's the complete opposite thing that I was preached to literally 2 weeks ago, and before that.
I'm no DGGer.
Okay,
I'm no DGGer.
But then, second of all, isn't it fucking cucked to even accept that this is democratic radical violence in the first place? Like, why should we even accept that framing? Shouldn't the better thing to be is be like, they have nothing to do with us. We're not responsible for that shit. You guys are more responsible. Like, I don't even know why we would even give the ground of acknowledging that these shootings have anything to do with democratic ideology or democratic people, other than the people who are criminally responsible.
Maybe it has something to do with the fact. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe it has something to do with the fact that you are going against an irrational opponent, and being rational. And I'm not saying being irrational is the answer, but being rational to the point where you're trying to get them to understand rationality is is just in futility. It doesn't
Okay.
make sense to do that, and it's not worth spending your resources in doing that. And you can say things like, "Hey, the ball's in your court. You guys have the power. No one on anyone that's on my side that is in power is condemning this. Everyone on your side is not." And I agree with you. We should focus on Trump, but to at least in an optimal situation, I'm giving the hypothetical
So what's the
that perhaps
prescription? What's the prescription? Help me out there.
Okay, I think the prescription is doing what Destiny did, is saying, "I will condemn when they will condemn," and that will reinvigorate some people and saying that I'm sick and tired of making my side look guilty by constantly condemning.
I'm not convinced that looks good. Maybe you think it does. I'm not convinced it looks good to anyone who doesn't already agree with you.
Do you think that
it
when
reminds
people
me of like the "will you condemn Hamas" thing?
No, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work
No,
anymore.
But I think that for a while it worked a lot, and I think that people who were nice about Hamas.
But you agree it doesn't. You agree it doesn't work right now, though.
Well, no,
right?
because there's a fucking genocide, and because it's fucking so apparent what's happening.
Right. And do you think we're
also.
reaching the point? Do you think it's reaching the point when someone says, "Will you condemn this act of left-wing violence?" Do you think it's becoming to the point where it's like, "Come on, that's ridiculous. Why are you asking me this?"
No, because there's no other side of this situation in the like individual like criminal thing that's happened, right? So in the context of Hamas and Israel, it's like these are two sides, one which is engaged in terrorist activity, the other which is engaged in their own war crimes, etc. And there's like these split sides that have a bunch of baggage of history, context, and at basis, the aspirations of becoming a state, etc., etc., etc. But the shooter is a fucking crazy guy. It's not this fleshed out political issue. It's like one guy who's a fucking criminal coward who took a shot. And so,
but we're not just talking about the shooting, right? I think we're also talking about the fact that people are celebrating it. We're talking about the fact that people are still talking bad about Charlie Kirk, and that was another thing that was on Piers Morgan's segment. It was about this Washington Post editor that got fired.
Being on defense and being like, nope, not going to do it. Not do it until Trump does. Not until Trump does. Instead of being like, yeah, I condemn it. And now look what Trump is doing. And now you take all the gas out of their tank.
When it comes to the shooting, I agree. No, I don't think. I know I would. It's like, do you condemn the shooting? Yes, I condemn the shooting.
Okay.
Do you condemn people celebrating this death? I would say, no, I don't condemn it.
Wait. So why would you, if you condemn the shooting, hang on, you condemn the
shooting,
why wouldn't I condemn people
celebrating it? No, sorry. That's not what I said. I wouldn't condemn people celebrating the death. Does that make sense?
Okay. Why? Thank you for the raid. Ogre boy.
Because it would go, I would be going out of my way at that point to play your game rather than focus on.
Oh yeah, you can do that. You'd be like, yeah, no, this was. You could say something like, "This was awful." I'm not going to get into condemning other individuals right now. I mean, like, I condemn the shooting, but we're not going to play this game. Not until you like. Then I think that you have better ground to do that point. Like, okay, we can play this game, Piers. I've already condemned the shooting. I'm not going to go on a list and condemning people unless you're willing to do the same thing with the right wing. Then I think you have something to stand on. But if you don't even condemn the shooting, I think that's like you don't look good. That's all I'm saying. Now you could disagree. I just have my view about what looks good, what doesn't look good. Maybe I'm fucking stupid. You tell me I'm stupid. I think it looks good, better to be like, yes, I condemn the shooting. I'm not going to get into this game of condemning individual people who are saying shit. You're overbroad in that, and certainly I'm not going to get into that game while Donald Trump is. And then I feel like you're in a better position of strength. So again, like, I don't have a problem necessarily with the feeling of it being unfair or whatever. I just don't know what if the prescription is don't condemn the actual fucking shooting. I just think that looks bad, and you can sue me, I guess, if you don't agree.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I think he lost that conversation, but I do agree with the larger sentiment of, because we're not just talking about the shooting, right? We're talking about, the left is celebrating this. We're talking about, oh my gosh, people are talking bad about him after he just died. We're not just talking about the shooting itself, I don't think.
I mean, I agree. There's a broader context here, and I would rather us get into that. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about.
But you're right. It makes it hard to get into that when you refuse.
The entire
just jump the hurdle. You're right.
So you don't
just
even
bite the bullet.
You don't even actually get into the Trump stuff. You just vaguely reference it because everyone is focused on your.
And it was super frustrating because
right?
he could have got into that, and he should have just bit that bullet when it says yes.
No, but I understand.
I hate the shooting.
I understand the frustration of the unfairness. I understand the frustration of like, what the fuck are we doing here with the president and like all and like Anna Kasparian and having on Jack.
So maybe don't go on Piers Morgan though. Then that's my prescription: is don't have that conversation.
I mean, we already had this. You should definitely go onto these spaces. We should just like be based on them and be effective on them. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not even saying that to the right person. It's like a clear whatever. It's that it is absolutely certain that he lost or this or whatever. I just think it looks bad. That's all I'm saying. I think
we're playing politics. I agree. When are you going to be debating Adam Friended?
He blocked me, bro. I'm blocked.
I thought he blocked Soy Pill too, though. I thought he's going to be debating him tomorrow, isn't he? Talking to him tomorrow?
Well, I'm open to talking to Adam Friended any day of the week. I mean, I'm so open to talking to Sitch and Adam anytime.
Man, I hate that guy.
They're punks, though. They're punks.
They are, Adams especially.
Adams especially.
But listen, I after our last convo, this last thing I'll say, I took some notes, I did some math, and I'm still right about that whole voting thing and effectively zero thing and swing state, safe state.
No, you're wrong. You're definitely wrong. I mean, you can send me later. Bye. Jesus Christ, this guy. It's the same guy. Why did I fucking let him on? No, he's definitely wrong about that. Yo, what up, Force of Will? I'm assuming your name is Will.
Yeah, it is.
How you doing, Will? Will Turner.
So, I asked Connor this morning, and I thought his answer was pretty interesting, but I'll ask you as well. So, it seems like the current Democratic strategy of they go high, we go low has been a failure, and it's just hard countered by the Republican strategy of cause problems, blame the Democrats for those problems, right?
I don't know if I agree with that characterization. Like, you're playing off they go high, they go low generally versus cause problems. I don't think that a lot of those, I think it depends on what. I think there are some principles that Democrats should uphold to. Like, I don't want Democrats just lying, right? I think you'd agree with that.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying we should like cause problems and blame the Republicans. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I know, but basically, I think that there's a mixed strategy on different issues. I think trying to be better than and not getting in the mud are mistakes. So, for example, on gerrymandering, I think it would be a mistake not to respond in kind with partisan gerrymandering, but on things like lying, on things like corruption, on things like creating problems for the American people. I think that those are things that that we shouldn't do. So I guess it depends on the issue. It's too broad of a characterization to say in general sticking to higher principles hasn't worked. I think it depends on what.
Well, so I'm not necessarily saying that sticking to higher principles doesn't work. I'm saying that messaging like we're going to stick to higher principles doesn't work. So, for example, when I asked Connor this, his response was the better strategy to, counter the Republican strategy is to stop being pussies and buy guns. And in the way I took that to mean is like, for example, in the Charlie Kirk thing, it's you condemn the violence and you say, I hate violence, but also, I'm going to go buy a gun right now because they keep talking about civil war and I don't, I need to be prepared for that shit, right? Like you can still say, you can still stick to your higher principles, but you can't say the whole, like,
it just
that's
feels
it,
non-responsive,
let's move on,
like,
let's all be bigger people.
It feels like you were asking questions about Democratic strategies. Like, I think that based on their rhetoric, I'm going to go read a bunch of Harry Potter books because I think Harry Potter is based and they're trying to, like, it just doesn't seem like it's responsive. Buy a gun? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is he talking about?
It means that everything that the Republicans are making of the situation is pushing us towards civil war. And you got to be prepared for that shit.
I mean,
you don't have to say buy a gun, but you could also go with the prescription of like, I condemn the violence, but I'd also call on governors to, mobilize their National Guard so that Trump can't do it first. Like that kind of thing, where you want to, like, I agree, condemn this shit.
No, that doesn't work because the state militias are under state control. Typically, they're always under state control, and maybe you can mobilize them and activate them to do certain things. But if the federal government federalizes them, presuming that they follow federal law, and they've been very deferential to the executive so far on that, then federal law trumps state law, the supremacy clause of the
I think
Constitution.
you're getting a little too bogged down in the specifics, because like there's a million different things you could say as like a representation of I'm preparing for the civil war that they are calling for actively right now, right?
Yeah, I think that we should try to get to the next election. I don't know that we need to be doing this kind of shit.
But doesn't just saying like, oh, let's wait till the next election, that's what makes people think Democrats are weak, though. Like people want proactiveness. They want to feel like the people who they voted to give power are utilizing the power they've been given. The reason why people quote unquote trust Donald Trump is because he's probably the only president in modern history who can honestly say, I used every bit of power. I pushed the law as far as I possibly could.
Okay, you want me to tell you to buy a gun?
Deliver on my
if I say buy a gun, if I say buy a gun, it's to give you guys emotional, like, because you need that emotional outlet or something. I don't.
Yeah, that's what people want.
Go buy a gun because
it's all vibes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. My intuition is talk shit about the administration.
Absolutely.
Platform and like promote strong Democrats, get pumped up for these upcoming elections where we put people because that's how we solve political differences in this country, is through a democratic process. And if it makes you feel better to LARP and buy a gun, y'all should buy a gun to prepare for the civil war. Like, you want me to say that? At
this point, it's not really LARPing though.
Okay.
Like, I live in California, and I'm definitely voting to support the redistricting stuff. But I could honestly say I don't really trust Trump not to try and invade the state if that passes. Like, that's a very reasonable thing to say.
I think we should try peaceful protest before violent protest. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we have.
We
haven't even gotten to the point. We're not even activating to peacefully protest. We do in certain situations where we have the No King's Day, certain protests, and it's all been honorable and all been good, and sometimes I think effective. Like, but let's not talk about rising up violently until we have like massive amounts of, sit-ins, massive amounts of like people joining the movement, because it's just like it feels like a LARP. We haven't even tried a mass peaceful protest.
But mass peaceful protests rely on everybody, and it's too optimistic in my opinion. Like, just saying to people like,
buy a gun isn't,
you know what,
prepare for the Civil War.
No, just be prepared. Like, they're crazy people in running the country. I thought libertarians, this is why we have the Second Amendment, is to fight tyranny when it comes. This is obviously tyranny. Be prepared.
Okay, guys, buy guns. I don't think it's gonna help anything, but you seem to think it's gonna help stuff. I don't know what it'll help, but
a strong way to message that doesn't sound weak and still offers all of the moral
Democrats
benefits of
support gun control, right?
You can, yeah.
So it's a little bit
Personally, I think they go a little
counter
too far,
to like the Democratic platform, which are like, we need gun control. So there's that.
Yeah, but the Democratic platform isn't ban all guns.
Correct.
Like, you don't have to say go buy an assault rifle. You can say go buy a pistol. Like, there's reasonable ways to do this. You can say follow the laws in your state to go legally purchase a gun, because every law has their own methodology of doing it. And you don't even have to say go buy a gun. There's other ways you could prepare. You could, you could actually, I can't really think of anything else, because buying a gun is just like the simplest way to do things. And gun control is probably something that the Democrats should lessen up on for this reason exactly. But like, it just seems like such an obvious way to pander to normies aren't super against guns. That's why Democrats keep losing when they push for guns too much. It's like the weakest thing they support. And it also like very much caters to those center right Republicans who are like very pro-gun, Second Amendment. I don't trust the government. Like you feed on all the reasons why the current administration are being extremely hypocritical in their beliefs, while also, maintaining strength and keeping the moral high ground.
Well, okay, guys. I mean, go buy guns legally. I don't know. It's not something I really feel. I think it's a LARP. I don't think it's going to help anything. Maybe the messaging will help some people, but again, I think Democrats in general are like more suspicious of guns. They're more suspicious of the gun proliferation, and I think that they're more likely to hear a message of like, "Hey, this is all the bad shit Trump is doing. This is what we're going to do for cost of living," and not like go buy a gun because the fucking civil war is coming. Don't even come out to fucking vote.
No, you should definitely go out to vote. Like, why would you message on that?
I'm fucking around. I'm fucking around. but like basically that, like, I feel like our time is better spent talking about the Trump fuck ups and what Democrats plan to do about cost of living, what Democrats plan to do about restoring funds to social programs, what Democrats plan to do when it comes to agencies, etc. I don't know why the gun rhetoric is going to be more effective. I would recommend, if you think it's going to be effective, to like test it. Maybe there's some kind of like testing we can do to see if it'll be effective. But I'm not convinced that it's a salient issue for Democrats that's going to excite our base.
So again, I don't necessarily say guns is the way to go. It's just like the most obvious one I can think of to like point out the fact that like the other side is clearly calling for a civil war and has been calling for a civil war for quite a while. And they seem like they're very much preparing for one with everything that's going on. That being said, it's actually, oh God, I lost my train of thought. I think also that for convincing an individual, like you're right that like nailing down all the specifics and this is why Trump is bad because he does this and he broke this specific law and blah 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 like that. But in the aggregate, when you're messaging to the wider population, when 90% of people are only going to hear 10% of your message, and when most people are just reading like the first 5 words of the sentence, you need like clear, simple messaging because people are lazy and dumb and busy and just don't have time to think about this stuff. And so having like a clear like 4 words or less of like disavow but no civil war is like that's like the starting point you want to start from, and then you can like do all the specifics of shitting on Trump and getting into the weeds on everything afterwards. But you have to like recognize that for 90% of the people, they're reading 4 words and moving on because they have other shit to do.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate that. Keep it simple. Buy guns. Prepare for the Civil War because they're certainly preparing for it. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Pretty much.
Okay. I don't know if I have thoughts on that. I'll think about it, though. But thank you so much for your input.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, later, brother. Guys, I'm done with callers. I told you guys not to join, so sorry about that, but I'm done with callers. I just want to take one look at this guy. This guy reviewed my fucking thing. It's actually insane. This review is unhinged. I listened to a little bit of it, but I want to expose you all to it.
So, fellas, we're gonna cover some ground today. Tim Pool had on Joel Webbin, Connor Tomlinson, and Predator Pisco. Why did
Predator Pisco?
Does everyone in the world call him Predator Pisco? Because
okay.
I refuse to believe he reserves his constant gaslighting and antagonization for outside of the bedroom. He's an absolute.
So I'm a predator because my antagonism and gaslighting is likely to be not just something I do in public. Again, that assumes that I gaslight in these discussions, which I don't do.
But he is legally my countryman, and therefore, in the interest of the community, I must highlight and heavily criticize his petulant, estrogenic debate style.
Estrogenic debate style.
I also want to show Joel's case for Christian nationalism and Connor's grace and pragmatism in the face of a literal demon.
grace and pragmatism in the face of a literal demon. So I think that later this guy says he's an atheist. He's like, I want to support this Christian nationalist guy who would make it a crime to blaspheme, and see why he makes such a great case for us. Let's see what his actual criticisms are of me, quote, a literal demon.
But first, here's Pisco psychotically asking meaningless questions just to obfuscate any and all
meaningless questions to obfuscate productive conversation.
In Chicago, we're talking about an emergency scenario that Trump could declare an emergency.
Well, then you can just answer the question. You can, like, if someone says, for example, in every circumstance, can he deploy the National Guard? You can just say no in some circumstances, right?
So this is me asking if, not to obfuscate at all, if you care about whether the deployment is legal or not. And you're like, this is just to obfuscate, right? Like, me asking whether or not you would agree with an illegal illegal deployment of the National Guard, that gets to the heart of like some things that people care about when it comes to government officials. Are you breaking the law or not? Are you doing authoritarian shit or not? So me asking like, well, do you acknowledge that in some cases it would be unacceptable or illegal or against the law, right, to do a deployment or not? That's me having to go to like basics, because Tim Pool will fight, be like, no, of course the president can do it. And like, you have to walk him down and be like, do you agree that there are at least some deployments that would be illegal? The reason we get there is because he fights tooth and nail on the notion that anything the president could do, if it's a Republican, would be illegal. And so you have to actually walk him and be like, do you even grant that it's conceivable, that it's even possible for it to be illegal? That's why we're there.
Let's talk about the real world.
Well, you didn't answer that, right? Not in every circumstance.
So this is me asking the same question, so not asking different. I'm trying to get to an answer because I'm trying to build something. It's not to obfuscate, it's to demonstrate that there are deployments that would be illegal and you would be okay with such things. So it's very clear why I'm doing this.
Absolutely.
It's not
why don't you just answer the question?
I'm trying to, but you know why the murder rate went
down? And here you don't even see the question. It's just me saying, would you answer the question? So he's suggesting that this is evidence that I'm obfuscating with my questions, and you don't even show the question. You just say, could you answer the question? But obviously, like, it's quite possible the question here is legitimate and not at all obfuscating, because and it's just him dodging. So I would say that the dodge is more obfuscating typically than it is just like answering the question.
Can you answer my question?
I am answering your question, but you're not smart enough to understand complex.
So who's obfuscating? Him going after me? He's like, I'm answering, but you're not smart enough. I'm answering, but you're not smart enough to understand it.
So listen, you can answer. Question is not an answer. So I'm not sure. You're asking, do you understand murder rates? I don't know.
So this is me saying, asking a question, him giving a question and response, and me saying, dude, a question is not an answer. I'm asking a question, and I'm asking for an answer, not for a question. And that's me pointing that out. That's not me asking a question to obfuscate. It's me pointing out that he's responding to a question with another question.
Like, I'm going to pause real quick and just go to like comprehensive skill.
Yeah. No, you never answered my question.
The answer is
yes.
When
military
applicable.
So no context whatsoever. The only question we had was about whether or not some deployments would be illegal, whether there are such deployments that could be illegal. But it just different clips of me saying, will you please answer the question? Will you please answer the question? As evidence of me asking like useless questions that just serve to obfuscate. But of course, just the mere fact that I'm saying, will you please answer a question, doesn't mean that the question is intended in bad faith way, or that I'm like a literal demon, actual insane person.
Can you answer that first? Wait, can you answer that first? Is crime less of a problem now than it was?
Like 5 times already.
So, and this is again him refusing to answer the question about like the urgency of the crime, which is what we're talking about, is whether this is an emergency, whether it's justified to use the National Guard in the context of like a crime emergency. It's me asking whether, in general, the crime rates are down, whether this is an urgent matter. That's me asking that.
Answer this question. Here, why don't you answer the question?
It's like your brain is what were those Duplos?
I don't know what a Duplo is.
Exactly.
What's a Duplo?
Duplo were the really big Legos because little kids didn't have
That's me. Duplo is me responding to him bringing something up. I mean, I'm certainly not bringing up Duplos to obfuscate. This is all stupid.
Small shapes.
Wait, no, but hang on.
You keep doing the same thing where you say, what about this problem? Do you agree with the absolute? I don't. What about this absolute?
Is more crime worse?
More crime is worse.
Okay, but so now that we have less crime, fucking hypothetical.
Why? Why would crime go up? Why would crime go up? Why?
Hang on.
I haven't been hostile to you the entire show. There's no need to be passive aggressive.
Just
no need
answer
to be
the question, bro. You guys are fucking military deployments all over the country, and you call yourself an anarchist.
What is anarchy?
You're supporting Trump, like deporting people because they're critical of Israel.
What is anarchy?
What do you mean?
He's insufferable. Pisco.
So that was his point. That compilation of clips without any context. Do any of you know what the fuck? If you haven't watched that debate with Tim Pool, you have no idea what the hell is going on. It's not even a coherent point. He's insufferable because he asked him, because you've taken out some places where he said, please answer the question. Would you say that to Piers Morgan, by the way, when he's like, answer the question, dude? Or, for example, Andrew Wilson, answer the question. Answer the question. Will you answer the question? It's so preposterous. This guy's 2 IQ.
Dodges a question when it's asked to him directly multiple times in a row while asking
You haven't shown me dodge a single question. You know, find me dodging one question, and no example whatsoever of me dodging any question.
These rapid fire questions that lead nowhere and just are used.
I mean, you've edited the entire debate for me finding whether, when I said please answer the question or answer the question, that's not rapid fire questioning. That's just a bunch of different instances across the course of a 2-hour discussion of when I said please answer the question.
Interrupted the person that's talking. I mean,
there's sometimes I interrupt, but they've interrupted me too.
He only uses this for debates, by the way. He never uses this in interpersonal relationships with girlfriends.
What tactic? Please answer the question. Yeah, interpersonally, sometimes I say please answer the question. I will admit that. Like, wait, do you want to go to dinner or not? Can you just answer the question? Everyone does this in the sense of like, can you please answer? You didn't answer. You haven't said whether you respond, but I don't. Listen, sometimes you just need an answer. Did you like that or did you not like that?
To manipulate them and coerce them. No. This is only used in this arena. Totally. Can't tell anything about his character. All right, here we go. Let's hear this debate about Trump using the National Guard in Chicago.
I believe it is preferable.
He hasn't used it, but he
take
will.
the Donald Trump conservative approach of deploy National Guard, but not to enforce laws, but as a presence, as opposed to the Democrat strategy of tear down the homes of black people and kick them out and make them homeless.
So this is his dichotomy, right? Like, I prefer Donald Trump deploying Chicago National Guard people and picking up garbage as opposed to the Democratic strategy of bulldozing all the homes of black people. That's the example of, so Tim Pool is good faith. That's the good faith guy. And that's who this person is defending, is this dichotomy.
What do you think?
Even if it's illegal?
Deploying the National
Would you
Guard?
support the deployment of the National Guard in a city if it was illegal?
So we're talking about a specific incident in Chicago right now, the real world, not a hypothetical.
That's him not answering.
Is it on paper or not? We're dealing with 2 scenarios.
Okay, so Pisco is acting like he cares about the Constitution, people's rights, and whatnot. He just wants to make Trump seem like an authoritarian. And so Tim Pool bats all that away, and he's like, well, here's what the Democrats have done in Chicago. I am from Chicago.
He bats all that away. I mean, he doesn't respond. He's like, I don't have to deal with your question about, like, what is it legal or not? And also, it's not a hypothetical. I'm like, would you support it if it were, I suppose it is a hypothetical, but it's a hypothetical in the context of, you know, plausible facts before us that this is, you know, very likely illegal, and you know, there's discussions about whether, I'm not giving you like an island where there's 2 people who've only ever existed and like a bunch of different crazy scenarios, and he's like, he just bats all that away. He just bats the authoritarianism because, like, who cares about authoritarianism?
So I know about this personally, and that's how they've dealt with the crime. Now what Trump is doing is having 84 National Guard show up, and now we're going to hear 2 things. Tim Pool is just going to explain 2 things to add clarity, so Pisco can engage in good faith.
We're dealing with 2 scenarios. First, I will stress, Trump can legally deploy the National Guard. They just can't enforce the law.
In every circumstance, you think he has unbridled authority to deploy the National Guard whenever he wants? Any National Guard?
Well, me clarifying is like the first thing, like he can deploy if he wants. I'm like, not always he can, so I'm contesting one thing. I'm not just letting him say a bunch of untrue shit.
So in Chicago, we're talking about an emergency scenario that Trump could declare an emergency.
Well, then you can just answer the question. You can, like, if someone says, for example, you know, in every circumstance, can he deploy the National Guard? You can just say no in some circumstances, right?
Well, now let's talk about the real world.
Well, you didn't answer that, right? Not in every circumstance.
There's no absolutes.
Right. So you agree with me, don't you, that there are congressionally imposed limits?
So I want to call this yes begging, a classic leftist rhetorical strategy.
Yes begging.
They want to groom you into the habit of just agreeing with them.
Groom
saying
you.
Yes. So they'll start asking you super reductive questions and begging for a yes or a no. When the question is so nebulous and simplistic, obviously the answer would be yes, which then leads them to another series of questions. Tim identifies this and pushes back, which makes old Predator Pisco encroach and obfuscate even further. By the way, he obfuscated so hard, Tim never got to say his second thing. Always interrupts, always redirecting the conversation into the weeds.
So he's basically saying that Tim Pool is so stupid that I can just be like, hey, do you agree that there's like some things that Trump could do that are illegal? That he could say yes to that. Obviously it's yes, he says. And then I'll groom him into saying yes. He's so stupid that I'll just get him into the habit of saying yes to anything. He's basically saying that Tim Pool, et cetera, and these people, that I'm going to do like this manipulation mind game, that what I'm trying to do here is groom them into just being like these docile, people with no personality and no cognition of their own, and just coercing them into saying whatever I want them to say. It's madness. When really he started with Tim Pool doing this dichotomy, this totally false dichotomy between like bulldozing black people's homes and National Guard deployment in Chicago.
Is 48th West 44th Street. There's a couple blocks from where I grew up, and it's all just beautiful, lush fields surrounded by fences. That's what it is. I wonder if I can go back in time. Oh yeah, look at this. That's where black people used to live. Look at all these houses. They fucking destroyed, because instead of saying we want to deal with the crime, they went in, evicted all the black people, and ripped their homes down.
I'm not sure about the particulars of this, Tim, but like we're not here to discuss. Was this
my
smart or not? I mean, if this happened in your neighborhood, I'm really sorry about that. But we're not here to discuss this, right? Are we here to discuss the bulldozing of homes? Or are we here to discuss
2011,
the National Guard?
We're here to discuss what is the solution to the problem of crime.
So Tim wants to specifically focus on Chicago because it gives us a grounding in reality. Huge history.
A grounding in reality to focus on. Like, no, we're talking about the National Guard deployment in DC and then proposed in Chicago. So we're not focusing on Chicago because it has a grounding in reality, just because that's one of the cities that was proposed here. I mean, there's no additional grounding. I mean, I don't know why the bulldozing of homes is relevant, and that the bulldozing of homes isn't like more or less grounded.
Of crime, his personal experience with the history of crime, and of course Pisco is going to want to take so many steps back and talk about it in general and go, no, I'm talking about the National Guard, not the crime.
Yeah, because that's the topic, dipshit. The topic isn't crime. The topic is the National Guard deployment, not what our best strategy for crime is. And you can say, well, we're only deploying the National Guard because of crime, but again, like no part of that conversation am I like required, or is it necessary for me to provide like my ideal version of what it takes to fight crime, or what is needed to prevent crime.
It's like, well, the crime is the justification for the National Guard. Oh, so what do you think the National Guard's going to do? Do you think they might do something authoritarian and crazy? It's so funny how
that's not what happened.
The left loves to look for a root cause, but then when it comes to Trump calling in the National Guard to Chicago, all of a sudden the root cause doesn't matter at all.
What? Like, so get this, right? His point is, we're not even talking yet, at least in the clips he's provided, about black people. It's like, the left loves to have root causes for black people, but not for why Trump is doing a thing. No, the left loves to look for root causes for why Trump is doing a thing. That's just not true. It's because he wants to encroach on Chicago, because he wants to, for example, with the Qatari plane, he wants to enrich himself. The left loves looking into the motives of Trump. So he's just fucking, an imbecile.
What's your solution to this? What's your solution?
I don't know. We're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime.
You don't have one.
Wait, we're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime, are we? Are we here to discuss crime generally, or the deployment of the National Guard and the military? Whether that's something we support.
The underlying issue of the deployment of the National Guard is the crime.
It's because of murder. It's because of the crime.
Okay, because of murder, we think that we should deploy the military. So would you be in favor?
Well, it's the level of murder and how long it's been going on for, and how district attorneys are not prosecuting these crimes. So they're
district attorneys are not prosecuting murder. Remember, murder was what we said.
Because of the crime.
Okay, because of murder, we think that we should deploy the military. So would you be in favor?
Well, it's the level of murder and how long
of murder. Where are the district attorneys not prosecuting murder? Someone please provide me where they're not prosecuting murder. There's this like rampant spree of not prosecuting murder. The district attorneys are just letting all these murderers go.
It's been going on for, and how district attorneys are not prosecuting these crimes, so they're not doing their jobs to reduce the crime. In fact, they're letting criminals go, and they go back on the street to reoffend, and so that's why the National Guard is being called in. Now, if you don't want that to happen, you should really pressure Chicago into prosecuting these people, incapacitating
these murderers. Yeah, we should really, I agree. We should prosecute murderers.
Them by
I didn't know that they weren't prosecuting murderers.
Taking them off the streets and putting them in prison.
I think an absurd number of murders are just don't get solved. They aren't let go. It's just a cold. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's true that there are murders that are unsolvable. Like, it's not because they don't want to solve them or because of lack of trying. It's because either they don't have the evidence or, they don't know who did it.
Sounds pretty simple and easy when you're on the right.
So this is what you have not done thus far in this discussion, and I'm just honestly curious. What's your solution?
For what?
A bunch of murder in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't take that to be the proposition of what we're here to talk about. But
I'll answer for him.
I think we should fund our law enforcement. I think that we should have, when appropriate, use the FBI and other federal resources. I mean, to help the.
Oh, wait, they're interrupting me this whole time and doesn't say the word.
City of Chicago
didn't work.
Hang on a second. So, to be clear, just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that we should apply the military solution. That doesn't follow, right? Just
because keep doing the same thing over and over again.
If it doesn't work,
and also crime is
something that works.
Crime is down. You said yourself, crime is down overall in the country. I mean, Trump took credit.
So let's do two things.
In DC, Trump was taking.
It's so funny because they're like, oh, this is the similar kind of logic that people were talking about doing today, where it's like, oh, we haven't tried just being unhinged about condemning violence from, in the political arena. We haven't tried that. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a bunch of things we haven't tried. We haven't tried just being naked. We haven't tried just because something hasn't been tried doesn't mean that that's the solution, and doesn't mean that it doesn't carry with it other problems. I'm sure that the military could prevent a bunch of crime, but I'm sure that a police state could prevent a bunch of crime. I'm sure just getting rid of all of our rights could prevent a lot of crime.
Credit for massive crime coming down in May of this year.
That's great. Chicago is still a hellhole.
And here we have the evolution of the mostly peaceful argument. Remember during quarantine race war of 2020, 93% of the protests were peaceful. And so even right now with Chicago, yeah, it's violent there, but it's not violent in other places. Does this work when it comes to black people being shot by the police? How most of the time that doesn't happen? So when they say Breonna Taylor's name, we go, yeah, but that mostly doesn't happen. Oh, it only works one way? Let's just jump into these numbers for a moment so I can explain how they do this. You see how in Oregon, 40% of the protests were riots? That's in Oregon State. You want to see what Portland looks like on their map? Political violence demonstrations and strategic developments in the United States, May 24th to August 22nd, 2020. The orange are the riots. We can agree if all of Oregon was 40% riots, Portland must have been over 50% riots, judging by that fat orange circle right there. But you see, using this logic, we get to ignore the fact that most of the protests in Portland were riots. Because look at Montana and Idaho. Most of those protests weren't riots. Checkmate, right-wingers. That's the level of evil we're dealing with here. But let's get...
Yeah, does anyone understand what the fuck he's talking about? So there's the mostly peaceful argument. I mean, what argument, where am I deploying this argument? Let's try to make sure that we're following here.
There, but it's not of 2020.
Chicago is still a hellhole.
And here
Trump was taking credit for massive crime coming down in May of this year.
That's great. Chicago is still a hellhole.
So this is me talking about the DC crime rates coming down and Trump taking credit for them in May. So Trump took credit for the DC crime coming down in May, and he's like,
and here we have the evolution of the mostly peaceful.
The evolution of the mostly peaceful argument. So I just cited crime rates coming down under Trump, or at least Trump claiming to take credit for, decreases in crime rates in DC, which is populated by a lot of black people. It's, I think, one of the most black cities in the entire nation. And I think this is just total, I think he's just saying words here. I have no clue what point he's trying to make of the mostly peaceful argument and how it relates to what I just said.
Remember during quarantine race war of 2020, 93% of the protests were peaceful. And so even right now with Chicago, yeah, it's violent there, but it's not violent in other places.
So I guess I'm lost here. Does he think that I'm saying that, well, you should only deploy in Chicago, or you shouldn't deploy anywhere else? Therefore, what does he say?
When it comes to black people being shot by the police, how most of the time that doesn't happen. So when they say Breonna Taylor's name, we go, yeah, but that mostly doesn't happen. Oh, it only works one way. Let's just.
Yeah, I have no idea. The point, he has some other, I guess, preconceived talking point or set of talking trees that he does for Breonna Taylor or for violence and policing and that kind of stuff, but literally is not responsive to anything that we're talking about. It feels like this is part of some other reaction video that has nothing to do with the temple discussion.
Let's jump into these numbers for a moment so I can explain how they do this. You see how in Oregon, 40% of the protests were riots? That's in Oregon State. You want to see what Portland looks like on their map? Political violence demonstrations and strategic developments in the United States, May 24th to August 22nd, 2020. The orange are the riots. We can agree if all of Oregon was 40% riots, Portland must have been over 50% riots, judging by that fat orange circle right there. But you see, using this...
I mean, I'm not sure about that. Maybe. But there could just be more shit that happened in Oregon. Who the fuck knows? I'm not sure about. I don't know what point he's making. It really seems impossible to follow. This guy's like a total doofus.
Logic, we get to ignore the fact that most of the protests in Portland were riots. Because look at Montana and Idaho. Most of those protests weren't riots. Checkmate, right-wingers. That's the level of evil we're dealing with here. But let's get back on topic.
Level of evil. I don't do any of you follow what he's saying and how it relates to the temple? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Let's kick it over to Chicago. Look at all the laugh riots that happened there. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of riots to happen in the Chicago area. I mean, in 2 months, 1 week, and 6 days, sure, there was over 1,000 arrests, over $66 million in damage, 2,100 buildings damaged and looted, 71 buildings set on fire, 157 people charged, over 280 police officers injured, and 15 deaths. But here's something you're not thinking of. Here's why you're an idiot. Have you considered Alaska? Look at how peaceful it was in Alaska. Let's combine that with the overall stats to bring it up to 93% peaceful. It's deep.
I don't know, like, yeah, I'm sure that there was more violence in certain cities than in like Alaska. It doesn't mean that the stat is not accurate, and I have no idea what the stat has to do with anything we're talking about.
Demons. It's the work of Satan. So let's take a moment to wash away the demon and hear the case for a pan-Christian theocracy integrated into the American legal system. This will be
like, how does that okay, so liberals are not me, because we didn't fucking talk about this shit or the mostly peaceful argument. I certainly didn't say mostly peaceful. If I did, though, it would be accurate. And so now I was like, now let's talk about Christian theocracy and why it's like these people have worms in their brains. They literally have worms in their brains. Like nothing is responsive, cogent, even like understandable. But I'm sure because it's hitting some of these dopamine pathways where they're hearing the words like libs, they say mostly peaceful, ha ha ha, click, like, and it's hitting all of these neural pathways, even though it's completely unresponsive to anything we're talking about or any argument that anyone brought up. It's brainworms. I was listening, I was like, what is this? Is this dude like an unhinged person?
93% peaceful. It's demons. It's the work of Satan. So let's take a moment to wash away the demon and hear the case for a pan-Christian theocracy integrated into the American legal system.
Let's hear a case for the pan-Christian theocracy integrated into the American legal system.
This will be from the Protestant perspective. I'm showing you this so if you disagree, you can at least steel man the argument in good faith and know exactly what you disagree with. Also, if I keep listening to Piss Bro, I'm going to turn my face into shrapnel off my keyboard.
I want to use
so you're done reacting to like my shit.
To promote
criminalize blasphemy.
Yeah, what?
Criminalize blasphemy.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Yes, I want to use laws to stop wickedness.
Who decides what's blasphemous?
Good. What?
Who decides what's blasphemous?
Guy with a gun.
One, the Lord Jesus Christ, the Triune God. Secondly, you can look to our heritage. You can look to our history. You can look to what the nation.
Well, our heritage says First Amendment, the very first line. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment.
Correct. Congress. Let's get there. So First Amendment. Let's make it even simpler. First word of the First Amendment. You're right. Congress cannot make a national church. So you cannot have a federal church over the whole country that is Episcopalian or Catholic or Baptist or whatever. But at the time that happened,
that's not the only thing that this Establishment Clause means, by the way. But, you know, me just focusing on incorporation after this.
Still had within the original colonies, 10 or 11 out of the 13 colonies had sanctioned churches. So technically, even with the First Amendment as it is on,
but it was incorporated under the 14th Amendment.
On the books today, you could have state churches. Texas could be Baptist, and Mississippi could be Presbyterian. You could have state churches. I'm not even saying that you should, but you could have state churches. What I would argue for at the national level is a pan-Protestant Christian nationalism. I think we should adopt a preamble.
That's religion, isn't it?
What?
Isn't that a religion?
That's religion. Congress can't determine a religion. Congress cannot say at the national level.
The 14th Amendment incorporates the First Amendment to apply to the states, I'll say, and the Second Amendment also didn't used to apply to state governments. Are you suggesting under your framework you would not want the Second Amendment?
My theocratic framework.
So under your theocracy, you called it a theocracy.
Yes,
under your
theocracy. Theocracy is wonderful.
Okay, got it. So this is what I mean.
God above the state. So separation of church and state is not the same as separation of Christ and state. There will be a God above the state. If there's no God above the state, then the state becomes God.
So these ideas aren't even close to happening, and I'm an atheist, but I think it's a good rationalization of how he's interpreting theocracy, because I love.
It's a good. What does this mean? It's a good rationalization for how he's interpreting theocracy. What a nothing fucking statement. It's a good rationalization for how he's interpreting theocracy. Do you mean that it's rational to support theocracy? Or are you saying that he's conceptualizing it rationally?
It is not the same as separation of Christ and state. There will be a God above the state. If there's no God above the state, then the state becomes God.
I'm an atheist, but I support.
So these ideas aren't even close to happening, and I'm an atheist, but I think it's a good rationalization of how he's interpreting theocracy.
It's a rationalization of how he's interpreting. A good rationalization of how he's interpreting it. So I don't even know what that means. Like, it being what he said is a good rationalization of what he's interpreting. Okay.
Because I love how the left gets to play with language, but the right never gets to play with language at all whatsoever. So when you think of theocracy, you think of a dictatorship, but he's integrating it into the American value system, and a lot of what he's saying is what the country was built upon in various different ways. So, okay, I'm listening.
So yes, I want...
A lot of what he's saying is how the country was built up in various different ways. What's your value add there, bro? So what he's referencing is the fact that there were some state, enabled religions in pre-Constitution, and then even after there was some establishment, because the First Amendment didn't used to apply there. But that's not a grounded argument in favor of theocracy.
Christ and state, not severed. Church and state, that's different.
So we can have some corrupt priests telling us what we're allowed to say and not.
Nope, that's an ecclesiocracy. That's a church-run state.
Corrupt, whatever you want to call it. Whatever your corrupt ministers, your corrupt people.
No, but what you're saying is not what I'm saying.
Okay,
You're
that's what's going to happen.
No, you're talking about priest running the state. That's a church-run state. I'm saying a theocracy, not ecclesiocracy.
So this is it will happen. I agree with Pisco, but it'll happen in any system among any group of people for any reason.
Correct. So we have priests who are running things right now, and the
it will happen. It'll definitely be corrupt, but everything's corrupt, and so who throw your hands up.
East, the high priestesses have blue hair, they're transgender, they're lesbian, they abort 1 million babies every single year. We have sacraments. It's not whether but which.
Tim comes in with a good point of like, yeah, let's say corruption will happen. Corruption happens in any system. And I feel like this is what a capitalist develops when arguing communism versus capitalism, where since capitalism actually exists, they act like these issues would go away with communism, which just will never exist. So rhetorically, I really enjoy...
Also, I love this, by the way, the whole communism memes where communism has never and could never exist. It's no true communism. I mean, like, we've had communist governments before in the world, and I think most of them have not been good places to live for sure. But I love this, a little bit of a callback to our discussion about what socialism is and what communism is. That everyone has seemingly a different notion that even communism could exist.
This approach of, yeah, corruption can happen no matter what. It's a universal criticism that can happen in any system. And just because something may become corrupt, we already have a corrupt system. So it's good to keep that in mind, where you need a stronger rebuttal for it to be more compelling, in my view.
Every society has a God. Every society has an orthodoxy. And we have blasphemy laws, not necessarily on the books, but in terms of cultural power. Every society of people has...
Blasphemy laws in terms of cultural power. Would you say something like Charlie Kirk's death and the fact that people are being forbidden from blaspheming with respect to the proper way to honor his death? Yeah, maybe that's what you mean by a blasphemy law. None of the books, but in terms of cultural power. Only in this case, they're actually using the power of the state to enforce this kind of shit.
Orthodoxy, anything that's deemed outside of that is going to be considered blasphemy. There are things that I could say right now, which I won't, but things that I could say right now that would be treated as blasphemy. I would ruin my life. I wouldn't be able to feed my kids.
I mean, absolutely incredible use of the word blasphemy. It is blasphemous if you use the N-word. It is blasphemous if you criticize trans people.
God.
There's certain things that are already blasphemous.
Really? Is it blasphemous? It seems like you guys have been doing a good job of criticizing black people, criticizing trans people. I think that you guys have been doing that just fine without any sort of government tamping down on you. I love this victim narrative that they try to present to us, like frontiersmen who are speaking the cutting edge truth that is being rejected when they're dominating the levers of power in this country, and culturally they wield an enormous amount of authority, especially right now in terms of the ability to do the cancel culture that they're doing.
I agree with this point. If we're going to make something blasphemous, let's make it Jesus Christ and the subset of Christian religions that developed the country and the West into what it is morally, to the point where it's instilled in our laws.
Last commandment is do not covet. 10 commandments, but think of it as 2 headlines, 2 subcategories, tables of the law. Our duty toward God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. And then the second is love your neighbor as yourself. Coveting was a sin, but it was never viewed as a crime, right? You don't want like a Tom Cruise Minority Report where they're trying to predict crimes and sins of the heart.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, neither do I. So
I don't know. So you support this deployment?
No, I don't. Let me finish. So coveting is a sin. It's not a crime. So it's like, so then when is this 10th commandment? It's one of the 10 commandments. When is it punished? It's punished when an individual...
This is when he was just like rambling for a bit. You guys remember that part from It's Always Sunny? It was like, it's the lawyer with the hand problem. He's like, are you just going to talk about your hands for a while? And this was this guy who's like giving us a fucking sermon in the middle of a discussion about the National Guard.
Doesn't check coveting at the level of the heart, and it spills over into theft or to murder or to...
Atheist,
it's when it breaches... Now it's a crime. It's an outward action that is against the people and against the Lord.
And so now you have a taste of a brand of Christian nationalism. He explains sins of the heart are not illegal, and it's only when they manifest into reality into law-breaking behavior. To be charitable, it seems like he wants more Christianity throughout society to bring back the morality and sense of duty that made us a great nation. Doesn't seem too scary to me at all. Okay, back to Pissy C minimizing crime in Chicago by pivoting to crime going down in the aggregate.
And you tell me you disagree with this. Maybe you think I brought it up for some other...
Can you find, like, is there any connection between... So this guy said, oh yeah, he wants to spread Christianity and he wants to, enforce blasphemy laws. Seems fine. Just like bring back Christianity, and totally fuck with our separation of church and state. That's all fine. And let's get back to him talking about a completely different subject.
That crime is going down suggests to you that it's less of a problem than it was before.
You were suggesting we don't need intervention because crime is going down.
No, I'm saying, do you agree it's less of a problem than it was 30 years ago? Of course it is, right?
Wait, what?
Is crime less of a problem now than it was 30 years ago? It depends what.
No. Wait, what? Crime is a problem of same value?
I love
the value or urgency of crime hasn't changed at all.
So the urgency of crime isn't affected by how much crime there is?
Let me ask you.
Wait, I want to hear you say that, Tim. Is the urgency of...
So he's saying ridiculous shit. He's fighting enormous bullets throughout this entire thing, and we're not stopping to be like, wait a second. He's saying some fucking crazy shit.
Crime?
This is why, by the way, this is how a dipshit reacts to this discussion, how Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar reacted. That's how enlightened Pepe's react.
Affected by how much crime there is it?
The urgency.
Look at the HP hit poor Connor Tomlinson takes. Yeah, buddy, you're dealing with a demon. It's the classic leftist trap of we need crime to perpetuate to justify government intervention.
Huh? You're on the side of the guy who's doing the government intervention, the deployment of the National Guard. How am I making that argument? I need crime to perpetuate. When I'm saying crime has gone down, it's literally the opposite. You guys are the one who are claiming that it's urgent so that we can do this government deployment. It's the exact opposite. They're the ones who are like, crime. You know, I'm getting too much psychic damage from this. Anyway, that's just what I wanted to show you guys. This is the caliber of like critique that we're getting, and it's just a bunch of ramblings that take poorly edited parts out of this conversation that don't seemingly have any connection to what he's talking about, don't have any connection with each other, jumping from topic to topic. Like on the one hand, like Christian nationalism, this is a good rationalization of what he interprets it to be, and he's just talking about blasphemy laws and spreading more Christianity. And let's now go to what Pisco had to say about lowering crime rates, as though those two concepts are connected, or they occurred similar in time, or they relate to each other, or they're part of some central theme other than this is evil and like their head is filled with worms, with brain worms. And he gets views because people just see the dopamine hit. They get the dopamine hit of like the black people bad, trans people bad, black people dogma, all that shit. And I just I find it funny, like the amount of pseudo intellectualism that exists on these right wing spaces is too damn high, way too damn high. And really, the people who showed up on Tim Pool make these kind of slop tubers, the ones with like the either whatever avatars, animal avatars. I remember this guy Bering and this other who's this other motherfucker? Naked Ape. Do these names mean anything to you? Naked Ape, Bering, all these slop anti-woke with anime characters or fucking avatars. You guys know what I'm talking about? That is literal bottom of the barrel in terms of discourse. I mean, I would take talking to one of these Christian nationalists any day of the week. Bored Ape, Armored Skeptic. Yeah, you know these names? Is Bering? I don't even know. I just remember him being a person vaguely familiar. Yeah. Okay, my wonderful friends. Thank you so much for. I'm gonna leave. I'm done. But I really appreciated you guys chilling. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and we'll talk tomorrow morning, which I guess today in a few hours. I don't know, 6 hours probably. I might release my video with Connor, my Connor video at 9, and I'll I'll do that. I'll release the video at 9, and I'll see you probably like 12. And then Aaron and I are doing our news stories. We're reacting to Charlie Kirk's death for the first time, I think. So that'll be interesting. There'll probably be a discussion there that is worth watching. That I think is at 2. So join me tomorrow, probably around 12. Aaron will join around 2. And that's it. Peace out. Oh, follow me on TikTok. Pisco Lady TikTok. And Instagram. Bye. Thank you for the membership.